Chapter 108, Mengyang What? We are official apothecaries, and you, a mere apprentice, dares to claim that you are able to point out our mistakes. What are you putting on an act for? We apothecaries have numerous means up our sleeves. Putting aside whether you can point out our mistakes, if you can even recognize the method we are using to forge pills, we can consider it your win. Upon hearing Zhong Xian's words, everyone exploded once more. An immature brat dared to claim that he had the ability to see through their forging methods and flaws just by seeing them forge a pill before him. Is he mad? At one side, Ouyang Cheng and Wen Shui felt frenzied. At the very most, one could only ask some remote questions in pill debate. As long as one was well versed in the knowledge of pill forging, much of it could be rationalized and inferred. However, to point out one's forging method and the errors in it. Pill forging was just like a person's handwriting. There are 10,000 different types of handwriting for 10,000 different people. Even for the same pill, there were at least 1,000 different methods of forging it. The movements in each method were profound and intricate, and a slight difference in their motions could mean an entirely different forging method. Furthermore, each and every pill forging methods that were able to be passed down through the generations were the blood, sweat, and tears of innumerable people and had been refined countless times toward perfection. It might not be entirely perfect, but at the very least, these apothecaries had been using it daily and never found anything off about it. Even if a 3-star apothecary were to be here, it would be hard for him to point out the errors in it. This wasn't just a mere rise in the difficulty anymore, it was an overturn of the rules, raising the difficulty to the heavens. If an apprentice apothecary undergoing a pill debate was equivalent to the difficulty to 3-digit addition and subtraction, what Zhong Xian proposed was equivalent to Goldbach conjecture. The difficulty wouldn't just increase, it would be increased to an unimaginable level. Brother, are you sure you aren't jesting? Wen Shui looked at him as though she was looking at a monster. Yesterday, he wasn't even sure about the existence of a book collection vault in the Apothecary Guild, and he didn't know what books he had to read for the apprentice apothecary examination. Yet, today, he suddenly became an expert, putting on airs here. If she didn't witness it personally, she might have thought that he was afflicted with dissociative identity disorder. Even though a human's personality changed over time, it should be impossible for such a massive change to occur in a person in a single day. Even if he wanted to act cool, there should be no need for him to play it so big. Why? You dare not agree? Are you afraid that you will be embarrassed after I point out your errors? Or are you afraid of being humiliated when I point out your forging method? Ignoring their stares, Zhong Xian chuckled lightly. He had already contemplated over the matter and came up with a solution for passing the pill debate. Even though he was done looking through the basic tier book collection vault in the Apothecary Guild, there was still a certain level of difficulty for him to successfully pass the pill debate. After all, there were so many apothecaries assessing him, and it was hard to tell whether they might have capabilities beyond that of the books. They might come up with questions beyond what was written in the books. If he failed to answer their question, it would be an immediate loss. Since that was the case, he should find a way to prevent them from bringing up such problems. In other people's perspective, to determine a forging method and pointing out the flaws in it through watching how a person forged pills was much more difficult than undergoing a pill debate. However, Zhong Xian possessed the library of Heaven's Path, which allowed him to easily see through the flaws of others. What was nigh impossible to others became an absolutely simple task before him, only requiring reading word by word off a book. An apothecary forging pills was equivalent to a fighter executing his battle technique. A book would be compiled by looking at it. Thus, Zhong Xian intentionally drew aggression from the others to incur their rage. After which, by behaving contemptuously, the others would definitely think of him as arrogant and agree to it. As long as they agreed to this method of examination. Once you all agree to it, everything else will be a piece of cake. Witness as I play you all to your death. Since you are looking for excitement, we will fulfill your requests. Indeed, since you are adamant on acting cool, we'll see how you cry afterward. As he expected, the crowd immediately exploded yet again after his taunting. Every single of them was tempted to pay greetings Zhong Xian's 18 generations of ancestors and all of his kin. Embarrassed your head. The heck that we would be humiliated. We just fear whether you have sufficient capabilities to do so. The 10 apothecaries' fighting spirit roused. If not in consideration of their identity, they would have charged forward to bash him. Since all of you have the guts to agree to it, then let's begin. Upon seeing how he was able to settle the issue so easily, Zhongxian chuckled. Then, looking at Ouyang Cheng, who was standing at the center of the room, he said, Guild leader Ouyang, can we begin? Of course. He didn't expect a simple pill debate would escalate to this point. Ouyang Cheng felt helpless and frustrated. At this moment, he had no choice but to go along with it. May I ask which apothecary would like to go first? I am willing to offer you all free pointer. Zhongxian flung his sleeves arrogantly. The faces of the crowd flushed red in anger. I can't stand watching him act like this any longer. Allow me to teach this brat a lesson first. Finally, an apothecary couldn't hold in his rage any longer and stood up. It was a middle-aged man in his 40s. His face was slightly grey and his eyes glowed as though they were lanterns. With a single look, it was clear that he wasn't someone with a good temper. It's apothecary Meng Yang. Meng Yang's temper may be awful, but he's a true 1-star primary stage apothecary. Given how he's able to forge over a dozen kinds of pills, he isn't someone to be underestimated. Indeed, a few of his apprentices even made it big. Furthermore, he has many kinds of forging methods. It is most suitable for him to make the first move. Seeing the middle-aged man stepping out, the rest of the apothecaries secretly nodded their heads in agreement. How could there be any mediocre figures among the 1-star apothecaries? This apothecary Meng Yang might not be the most capable apothecary among the group, but his skills were not the worst of the bunch. They would be able to see the capabilities of that arrogant fellow through him. Lad, I will start forging now. If you are unable to tell the forging method later on and point out the flaws in it, prepare to be punished. With a cold sneer, Meng Yang walked over to the cauldron. He casually grabbed a few medicinal herbs from the shelves by the side, and by controlling his zhenqi, he induced the flame beneath the cauldron to become even more vigorous. Xiong xiong. The flames burned furiously off its fuel and a slight chiming sound resounded from the cauldron, as though it was a giant bell. Hoo hoo hoo. Stalks after stalks of medicinal herbs were thrown into the cauldron and under the high temperature, a unique scent of medicine floated into the air. This is pill forging. Zhongxian might have read quite a few books in the basic tier book collection vault, but this was the first time he was seeing someone forge a pill. Incredible. He couldn't help but be impressed by it. In terms of cultivation realm, he was in no way inferior to the other party. However, the way how the other party threw the medicinal herbs into the cauldron so casually without the slightest hesitation or pause, and how every single stalk of medicinal herb was placed under optimal conditions for it to best unleash its medicinal properties, it was something he could not hope to match. This required continuous practice over time. He might excel in theories, but this didn't mean that he was capable of materializing it into physical actions. After a moment of looking at it, after integrating the knowledge from the basic tier book collection vault and the analysis on them by the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhongxian soon realized that he was unable to discern anything at all. He wasn't even able to see what forging method the other party is utilizing, much less see through the flaws in his actions. No wonder everyone stared at him as though he had gone mad upon hearing his request. If even guild leader Ouyang, who wielded the greatest ability among the group here, was unable to see through his forging method and had a perplexed expression at this very moment, how could an apprentice apothecary possibly see through it? Flaws. After confirming that he was unable to see through it through the sea of knowledge he had accumulated, Zhongxian didn't hesitate any longer and he willed for a book to be compiled. Wang. With a loud explosion, the Library of Heaven's Path jolted and a book suddenly appeared in his mind. Written inside were this apothecary Meng Yang's pill forging method and the flaws in them. This. After taking a look, a bizarre expression appeared on Zhongxian's face. Chapter 109, Tranquil Heart Pill Not Bad. Meng Yang is getting more and more adept in his pill forging technique. Indeed, if he is able to identify a flaw in his pill forging method, I will twist my head off. Zhongxian noticed that the gazes of the other apothecaries were fixated on Meng Yang and they nodded their head in approval in response to the display of his skills. They were able to tell what the other party's pill forging method before, and they had once used it as well, so they weren't too unfamiliar with it. This was also precisely the reason why it was harder to find flaws in it. Even they were unable to see the slightest mistake in the other party's forging. Every movement of his strictly adhered to the forging method without a single error in it. Guild leader Ouyang, do you think that he will be able to see through the forging method and the flaws in it? After bringing Zhong Xian over, Wen Shui didn't leave immediately. At this instance, she was standing behind Ouyang Cheng and she couldn't help but ask him the question. She wasn't even an apprentice and thus, she was unable to see through the various intricacies of pill forging. So, she could only place her expectation on this guild leader before her to explain the situation to her. Flaws. Ouyang Cheng shook his head. To tell you the truth, Meng Yang's pill forging method had been passed down for more than 300 years. It went through the hands of countless individuals and even if there is an error in it, it would have long been corrected. Anyway, given my level of standard, I am unable to see any errors in it. Not even you are able to discern any flaws. Wen Shui covered her mouth in shock. Ouyang Cheng was the most capable apothecary in Tianxian Kingdom, reaching the astounding level of the 1-star intermediate stage. If he was unable to discern anything, how could Zhong Xian, who had just become an apothecary apprentice, possibly tell anything from it? Who? After a moment, the flames weakened. Meng Yang opened the lid and the fragrance of medicine gushed out from the cauldron. The pill had been formed. Meng Yang pinched lightly and grabbed 3 pills from the cauldron. Each of them was round with a smooth surface. They were roughly the size of a longan and radiated a unique glow. All right, as expected of apothecary Meng Yang. Not only was the pill formed, it even reached the level of satiation. Incredible. Looking at the pill in his palm, everyone couldn't help but be impressed. Upon being forged successfully, the pills would assume different appearances depending on the efficacy of its medicinal property. It could be classified into 4 tiers, namely formation, satiation, perfection, and inscribed pill. It was already incredible for typical 1-star primary stage apothecaries to reach the level of formation when forging grade 1 pills. To reach the level of satiation was already something beyond what those of his level was capable of. Lad, I am already done forging my pills. So, what method did I just use and what flaws are there in it? Meng Yang returned to his seat and looked at Zhong Xian coldly. Upon hearing his words, the gaze of the others focused on Zhong Xian. They wanted to see what kind of shocking words this arrogant lad would speak of. Initially, they thought this lad would speak immediately. However, his eyes simply stared 45 degrees upward with a sorrowful expression on his face. He shook his head slowly and sighed. Hurry up if you have something to say. Seeing this fellow still persisting on keeping up the act, Meng Yang clenched his fist and smashed it on the table. Peng! Given his formidable strength and the current fury he had accumulated, a crack appeared on the table, putting it in a state of near collapse. Since you aren't embarrassed by it, then I will begin speaking. Seeing that the atmosphere was sufficiently heated up, Zhong Xian looked over calmly with a lowered head and said, if I'm not wrong, the pill you forged should be the tranquil heart pill which fighters often consume. That's right. Meng Yang nodded his head. It was easy for an apothecary to see what a kind of pill it was, so it couldn't be considered a formidable feat. The method you used is 10 formulas of tranquil water. Zhong Xian continued. That's right. This is 10 formulas of tranquil water. This is the most suitable method to forging tranquil heart pill. It doesn't mean much for you to see through this. Not expecting for the other party to be able to discern it, Meng Yang was slightly shocked. However, he didn't pay the matter much heed. 10 formulas of tranquil water was a unique method to forge tranquil heart pills. It was said that an apothecary created this method while looking at the surface of the water of a mountainous stream. The entire technique emphasized greatly on delicacy and quietness. There weren't too many intense movements in it, as though it was a quiet stream, flowing slowly and steadily down the mountains. As it fulfilled the concept of tranquil heart pill, it was easy for a pill to form using this method to forge it. Given that he was able to tell that the pill forged was tranquil heart pill, it wasn't that difficult to infer that the method used was 10 formulas of tranquil water. True, it doesn't mean much. However, It is a pity that you have warped the 10 formulas of tranquil water beyond recognition, causing it to lose the fundamental meaning behind it. Zhongxian flung his hand and said with a stern voice. Warped beyond recognition? Nonsense. If it is truly warped beyond recognition, how can I possibly successfully forge the tranquil heart pill, even reaching the level of satiation at that? Meng Yang retorted furiously. Since you don't believe my words, then I shall point it out clearly to you. Zhongxian stepped forward and pinched the pill lightly to place it on his palm. His gaze swept through the room as he asked, who can tell me what effects should this pill possess? Tranquil Heart Pill is a grade 1 pill. It helps cultivators to calm their mind so that their thoughts will not wander. This kind of pill is effective even on Fighter 8 Dan Zongsha realm experts, and as such, it is one of the best sellers of the Apothecary Guild. Wen Shui said. As a receptionist, she had sold all kinds of pills. It was natural that she would have a deep understanding of the effects of this Tranquil Heart Pill. Indeed, this pill can help cultivators to calm their mind. Zhongxian nodded his head in satisfaction. However, it's a pity that this pill which Apothecary Meng Yang doesn't have such effect. On the contrary, it might even cause a person's cultivation to go berserk if consumed. Nonsense. Meng Yang's expression darkened. The other party's action of doubting the efficacy of his pill in public was equivalent to humiliating him. You need not be so quick to refute my words. Let me finish my words first. Ignoring the other party's burst of outrage, Zhongxian chuckled and continued, if this pill was created by Apothecary Meng Yang yesterday, I wouldn't say such words. However, it is a pity that it isn't yesterday now and this pill is destined to be a failure. Yesterday? Is there any difference to it? Lad, clarify your words. Don't try to mystify us. Upon hearing Zhongxian's words, the crowd had no idea what Zhongxian was driving at. As such, they couldn't help but raise their doubts. I will explain to you all right now. Forging pills aren't just about technique and skills, one's mental state plays a huge part in it as well. Only by infusing one's mental state into the pill will the efficacy of the medicine be heightened. Tranquil Heart Pill requires the mental state of the apothecary forging it to be serene, and only through such can the pill be forged perfectly. I believe all of you should have seen the bad temper of Apothecary Meng Yang. He can be set off easily with a single word. With rage in his heart, how can he possibly forge the Tranquil Heart Pill which calms others? At which, Zhongxian slightly knocked on the table before Meng Yang. A crack had appeared in the table after the latter's previous punch. At this moment, unable to take the pressure any longer, it fell apart. Upon the sight, everyone came to a realization. His words were true. Pill forging was intricately linked to one's state of mind. It was inappropriate and unsuitable for one to forge a tranquil heart pill when under such rampaging emotions. Of course, his fiery temper isn't sufficient to ruin the pill. The crux of the problem is that there is killing intent within Apothecary Meng Yang right now. If I'm not wrong, you probably killed someone this morning and you still bear resentment toward the person. Most probably, you were betrayed by someone you trust. This resentment and killing intent have been infused into the Tranquil Heart Pill when you were forging it. Even though only a sliver of it had slipped in, to the cultivators who consume it, it could have disastrous after effects. It increases the possibility of their cultivation going berserk exponentially. If so, it will result in fatal damage onto their fundamentals, Zhongxian said. You. Meng Yang's body swayed. He looked at Zhongxian as though he was looking at a ghost, and his face immediately turned ghastly white. Chapter 110. You are about to die just like what Zhongxian said. Meng Yang was hiding resentment and killing intent within his heart. He was also betrayed by someone he deeply trusted in. Just that, it was something that happened this morning. He thought that his rage had already ceased, and never would he have thought that he would infuse these emotions into his pill. But how was he able to tell? Through the pill he forged. How was that possible? It's true. Upon seeing Meng Yang's expression, even the most dull-witted of the lot could tell that what Zhongxian said was the truth. They stared at one another in disbelief. Not only was he able to discern the killing intent in him through his pill forging, He is even able to deduce that he was betrayed by a trusted person. Are you an apprentice apothecary or a fortune teller? If you all think that there's something wrong with my words, there is an easy way to ascertain it. The guild should have pill sample beasts, right? We can feed this tranquil heart pill to it and see whether it will calm down or rampage. Upon seeing Meng Yang at a loss for words, Zhongxian chuckled lightly. Usually, in order to ascertain the authenticity and effects of a pill, the apothecary guild would prepare some pill sample beasts to test them. This savage beast was extremely sensitive towards pills. Upon consumption of the pills, one could determine the effects of the pills through its response. It corresponded to the lab rats used in clinical trials in the world of Zhongxian's previous life. Only after passing the tests could the medicine be fed to humans. This was to ensure the safety of those consuming it. Ouyang Cheng nodded his head and an apprentice apothecary walked out of the room. In a moment, a cage of savage beasts that resembled white mice was brought over. Opening the mouth of one, the tranquil heart pill was fed to it. A short moment later, the pill sample beast started to get agitated, running around the cage and clawing everything in sight. It didn't seem to be calming down in the least. Normally, after consuming a tranquil heart pill, the pill sample beast would lie quietly by the side. Yet, after consuming this pill, the pill sample beast becomes visibly agitated. In the midst, through Zhongxian's words, the pill sample beast who consumed the tranquil heart pill ran toward another of its kind, climbed on top of it and started to conduct insertion exercises forcibly onto the other party. Cough cough, the strong sexual drive experienced by the one who consumes the pill shows that not only does the pill not calms one, it even induces anger in them. If I'm not wrong, the person whom apothecary Meng Yang killed today is a woman, one whom he had a sexual relationship with. Her eventual betrayal resulted in his outrage, causing the pill to contain strong emotions of possessiveness and frenzy. Upon seeing the drugged pill sample beast in the cage crushing on another pill sample beast and forcing itself on the other, not giving the other party a chance to retaliate at all, the other apothecaries stared at one another in astonishment. Is this really tranquil heart pill? Are you sure that it isn't an aphrodisiac? It is fortunate that it isn't fed to a human. Otherwise, not only will their heart no calm down, they will even turn into a cough cough, it will cause disastrous effect. Everyone shuddered upon thinking about the possibility. This morning, I saw the concubine that I dote on the most conducting adultery on me with the butler. In that instant, rage filled me and I killed both of them on the spot. Upon seeing everyone's gaze focusing on him, Meng Yang shook his head as he explained. Since the other party had already said so much, there was nothing for him to hide. This incident had made him furious. For the entire day, he had been in bad mood. The reason why he stepped out was to embarrass Zhongxian so as to vent his frustration. Is that for real? Seeing through so much through looking at another forge pill? Seeing Meng Yang admit to it, the others stared at Zhongxian as though he was a monster. If their gazes were contemptuous before, they had a grave expression on at this very moment. One's pill reflected one's state of mind, but to see that an apothecary had killed someone earlier this morning, even inferring that the person was his concubine, through watching him forge pills. The heck, you must be a constable, right? Otherwise, how could he possibly tell that much? Alright, I have already pointed out the flaws in it. Apothecary Meng Yang, do you need me to go on? Ignoring the shocked expression on the others, Zhongxian said with a smile. The Library of Heaven's Path could see through all flaws. It was a simple task for him to tell that he had been betrayed by his concubine and that his pill carried killing intent and resentment. There's no need. I admit defeat. Meng Yang surrendered. The numerous apothecaries on the field, including himself, weren't able to see through the problem in the pill he forged. Yet, the other party was able to see through it directly, even telling so much about it. It was a clear loss, even if he didn't wish to accept it. Just like that, he surrendered. When Shue's eyes widened. An apothecary admitted defeat to an apprentice. If she didn't see this for herself, she wouldn't dare to believe it. However, it made sense when she thought about it. To be able to see that far, that fellow's eye for discernment was too incredible. He had no choice but to admit defeat. All right, next. Now that the first person had admitted defeat, Zhongxian had achieved first blood. He turned to look at the remaining 9 people with a smile. I shall face him. An elderly stood up. If they thought that Zhongxian was here to cause trouble previously, after Meng Yang's incident, they finally understood that this fellow was an expert among experts. No wonder he was so confident as to dare to challenge the pill debate, even raising the difficulty at that. It is Apothecary Chen Xiao. Apothecary Chen may not be the best among us in terms of pill forging, but he is the oldest. He is an extremely rational and calm person, unlike Meng Yang and his fiery temper. I believe that he will be able to defeat that lad. Seeing the elder stand up, everyone secretly nodded their heads in approval. This Apothecary Chen Xiao was the oldest among the 10 of them, as well as the most level-headed one. Surely there wouldn't be any problems if he was the one to make a move. Hoo. The flame beneath the cauldron crackled. In a moment's time, he extracted a few pills from it. It was the same pill as the one Meng Yang forged previously, tranquil heart pill. It was also perfectly round and smooth with radiance glowing off its surface. However, it was clearly of higher quality, reaching perfection. Alright, I am done forging the pills. You don't need to identify the forging method, it's the same as the one Apothecary Meng Yang used previously, 10 formulas of tranquil water. If you're able to point out the flaws in it, I will concede and admit defeat. Apothecary Chen Xiao said calmly as he grasped the pills he just forged in his hands. Incredible. This is truly a wise move. To use the same forging method to forge the exact same pills. Previously, he was able to point out the killing intent in Apothecary Meng Yang's heart as the flaw in his pill forging, but Apothecary Chen Xiao's state of mind is serene and he is a level-headed person. He should be unable to find another one of this kind of flaw on him. Let's see how he will fare this time. Upon seeing Apothecary Chen Xiao's actions, everyone couldn't help but exclaim internally that it was indeed the older ones who were more cunning. Even Zhongxian couldn't help but nod his head. The other party was indeed extremely wise. Even though the other party had clearly told him that he used the same forging method so that he doesn't have to guess it, his actions were, in fact, making it more difficult for him to answer. However, to the Library of Heaven's Path this was nothing at all. Zhongxian looked at him, seemingly nonchalant to his actions. If I'm not wrong, Apothecary Chen Xiao should have trouble sleeping and eating recently. Ah! Apothecary Chen Xiao was taken aback. It's true that I have been having problems sleeping, and my appetite isn't good recently. However, this should have nothing to do with pill forging though. So what if I don't eat or sleep? You just have to tell me about the flaws in my pill forging. Why are you telling me about my body condition? Besides, about me not sleeping well and having no appetite. How did you know about it? Nothing to do with it. You're wrong. It is related to it in every way. Zhongxian shook his head. Related to it in every way? Enlighten me. Apothecary Chen Xiao couldn't help but look over. Hehe, if I'm not wrong. You are about to die, Zhongxian said. Chapter 111, Death Aura Pu. He thought that the other party would speak of some theory to convince him of it. Hearing his words, however, Apothecary Chen Xiao almost puked blood. Just because I'm not eating or sleeping well, you say that I'm going to die. You're the one who is going to die, your family is the one who is going to die. Not just him, the other examiners also glared at him furiously. Apothecary Chen Xiao was an esteemed figure in the circle of apothecaries and they had always respected him. Yet, this fellow dared to curse him straight to his face. Do you dare to spout any more nonsense? I have been an apothecary for many years. Even though I have been stuck at this level for very long, I have been working diligently and studying hard to improve myself. I might not be a talented genius, but I am well aware of my body's condition. The reason why I haven't been sleeping well and eating well is because of the numerous miscellaneous affairs in my household I tend recently. There hasn't been anything off about my physical condition other than that. So, why do you say that I'm about to die? Apothecary Chen Xiao harumphed. Apothecaries often came into contact with medicinal pills and even though they were inferior to physicians in terms of diagnosing, they were still slightly learned in the aspect. You aren't wrong. There isn't anything wrong with your body. Zhongxian calmly replied to the suspicions he rose. Nothing wrong. Then, what are you talking about? How spiteful, how can you take these words as a joke? This is a pill debate, not a session for you to curse Apothecary Chen Xiao. Upon hearing him admit that there was nothing wrong with Apothecary Chen Xiao's body, everyone started to bellow at him angrily. If there was something wrong with his body, they could let this matter slip. However, since there was nothing wrong with his body, how could such nonsense be acceptable? Feeling baffled, Ouyang Cheng and the others stared at him. He. Zhongxian was completely nonchalant to the rebuke of the crowd. He simply smiled lightly and said, "Who says that one cannot die if there's nothing wrong with their body? What do you mean?" Upon seeing his calmness and confidence, Apothecary Chen Xiao felt goosebumps rising all over him. Just as he was about to continue questioning him, Zhongxian waved his hands and said, "Since you don't believe me, let's first take a look at the pill," at which, the eyes of the crowd fixated on the tranquil heart pill Apothecary Chen Xiao had just forged. Apothecary Chen Xiao is a level-headed and calm person. He has reached a high level of mastery in his skills in forging pills, and if I were to forcibly speak of a flaw of his, none of you will believe me. It would be troublesome to verify my claims as well. Zhongxian smiled. Since that's the case, I won't talk about the flaws in his forging method. I shall just talk about this pill here. Just like the one Apothecary Meng Yang forged, if this tranquil heart pill is consumed by a cultivator, it would aggravate his anxiety and even cause his death. What? I have been examining Apothecary Chen Xiao's method in forging the pills closely, and there isn't the slightest mistake in his actions. Furthermore, his pill has reached the level of perfection, so how can it worsen one's anxiety? This isn't a place for you to spout nonsense. No one believed Zhongxian's words at all. The reason why there was a problem with the tranquil heart pill that Meng Yang forged was because he killed his concubine, resulting in the killing intent in his body to billow such that even he was unable to curb it. On the other hand, Apothecary Chen Xiao had a calm nature, which was compatible with the state of mind one required to forge tranquil heart pill. If so, how could it worsen one's anxiety? Even if you wish to spout nonsense, you should have had something better to say. If you don't believe me, we can try it out. There are pill sample beasts here. Zhongxian pointed to the cage. Other than the two that were exercising together, there were still other pill sample beasts in the cage which were lying calmly by the side. Let's give it a try then. An apothecary who didn't believe his words casually picked up a tranquil heart pill and placed it into the mouth of a pill sample beast. After consuming the tranquil heart beast, the pill sample beast didn't get agitated as the previous one did. It also didn't grab another one of its kind to exercise on it. Instead, it laid by a corner, not moving at all. How is it? A tranquil heart pill can calm a person's mental state. The lack of movement in this pill sample beast means that the pill is taking effect. What else do you have to say? The apothecary harumphed. The others also looked toward Zhongxian. Previously, Zhongxian said that consuming this heart pill beast would worsen one's anxiety. Now, it was clear that the pill was working as it should and there wasn't anything queer about it. They were curious to see how he would answer. Give it a moment. Zhongxian didn't say anything else and simply sat quietly on his chair. After 10 minutes, the pill sample beast still didn't move at all. At this point, the apothecary who fed the pill sample beast the pill couldn't hold it in any longer. See, it hasn't moved at all. This clearly shows that the tranquil heart pill is working as it should. Are you trying to waste our time by having us wait? It's okay now, Zhongxian said. It's okay? The apothecary frowned. What do you mean? It is clear that this pill sample beast isn't anxious in the least given how it is still lying quietly by the corner. How do you want us to see? The reason why it is lying quietly by the corner doesn't necessarily mean that the tranquil heart pill has taken effect. It can also mean that it is dead, Zhongxian said. Dead? The apothecary was taken aback. He immediately rushed forward, opened the cage and grabbed the pill sample beast out. With a single glance, his eyes narrowed abruptly. This. How is this possible? The pill sample beast in his hand had already breathed its last. Its body was already starting to turn cold. How long had it been? To turn cold within 10 minutes, It meant that it had died a short moment after consuming the pill. It's really dead. The tranquil heart pill should only calm a person's spirits, so why would it kill a pill sample beast? A pill sample beast's constitution is suited for testing pills. It is impossible for ordinary pills to kill it. What is going on? A commotion broke out. After eating a tranquil heart pill, the pill sample beast died? If a cultivator were to consume it, wouldn't it mean his demise as well? This. Apothecary Chen Xiao's complexion darkened. He retreated several steps consecutively and disbelief could be seen in his eyes. This is impossible. I followed the forging method strictly, there isn't the slightest error in it. Even if I fail to form a pill, it shouldn't turn into poison. Why was the pill sample beast poisoned to death? It was a huge crime for an apothecary to poison someone to death through the pills he forged. He had never met with such an incident throughout his entire life, so why was all of these occurring now? Zhongxian, this. What's going on? With a bewildered expression, Ouyang Cheng sought clarification. At this point, everyone's gazes also focused on Zhongxian. He was able to tell the problem in this tranquil heart pill and he knew that the pill sample beast would die. Who else was more appropriate to explain the situation other than him? I have already revealed the flaw in his forging method, so I should have already passed this test. Do I really have to explain it? Zhongxian didn't reply Ouyang Cheng. Instead, he turned to look at apothecary Chen Xiao. He was able to identify the problem in the pill and he successfully pointed it out. This bore testimony to his abilities and in this clash between him and apothecary Chen Xiao, he could be considered to be the victor. If you explain the situation, I am willing to admit defeat. Apothecary Chen Xiao gritted his teeth. Even if Zhongxian were to win in this clash, as long as Chen Xiao didn't admit defeat, he would be able to conduct a round of examination. As the oldest one of the 10 apothecaries, his surrender would cause the confidence of the others to waver. As such, this matter was of utmost importance. If that's the case, then allow me to speak more on the matter. Zhongxian nodded his head. There are no problems with the sequence and technique you forged the tranquil heart pill with. In fact, you even infused your own tranquility into the pill. Rationally speaking, the pill should be of extremely high quality with high effectiveness. However, it's a pity that you are about to die. Your body is already filled with death aura and naturally, the pill you forge will come into contact with this aura as well. This is the reason why the pill sample beast died upon consuming the pill you forge. Chapter 112, Cheng Jiang. Could it be that I am really going to die? Apothecary Chen Xiao's mouth quivered and his entire body shivered slightly. The first time Zhongxian said these words, he thought that the other party was cursing him, so he didn't pay it any heed. However, upon seeing the pill sample beast die upon consuming the pills he forged, he was rattled. Even more so, he felt fear. Seeing him in such a state, everyone felt bad for him. They wanted to console him, but they couldn't find the right words to say. If he weren't on the verge of death, how could a pill sample beast die just like that from eating the pill he forged? It was clear that what the other party said was true. I have explained what I should. Who wants to challenge me next? Zhongxian scanned the surroundings. No. Brother Zhongxian, don't be in such a hurry. Apothecary Chen Xiao couldn't hold it in any longer and looked to him in panic. Instead of addressing him as a lad, he addressed him as brother now. Why? Is Apothecary Chen Xiao unable to accept the results and would like to experiment once more? Zhongxian looked over. No, I want to learn. How will I die? If you can tell me the truth, I am willing to have my body smashed to smithereens to repay this favor to you. Apothecary Chen Xiao pleaded. There weren't any problems with his body. Even if his appetite dwindled and his quality of sleep decreased, it shouldn't cause his death. As the person in question, how could he know nothing when he was already on the verge of death? I will tell you honestly then. Even though there were no mistakes in your skill and movements when you were forging the pill, your body is slightly stiff. It is clear that your vitality and strength aren't what they used to be. Most important of all, parts of your skin have started to turn grey, similar to the livor mortis that appears on corpses. If I'm not wrong, you have applied a special kind of medicine on your skin to conceal it from sight. In actuality, your entire body is already speckled with grey spot. Zhongxian looked over with piercing eyes. Looking as though he had been struck by lightning, Apothecary Chen Xiao's eyes narrowed as he retreated backward in fear. Just like what the other party said, there were spots on his body. He thought that it was a kind of rare disease and he intended to find time to seek out Master Yuanyu and have him take a look. After all, it didn't hurt or itch, so he didn't pay much attention to it. To think that it would be livor mortis. Sir, please save me. Suppressing his gasps of shock and fear, Apothecary Chen Xiao no longer held any doubt for the other party's words. He clasped his hands together and pleaded. His address also changed from brother to sir. Regardless of who it was and how long he has lived, no one wished to die, especially when death appeared before them. Everyone would seek any means to live on. Have you obtained some treasure recently? If I'm not wrong, you probably took it from a corpse. I shall not explain any further. If you wish to live longer, it is best that you not touch it anymore. Zhongxian waved his hand. I will end my advice here. Good luck. You. Hearing his words, Apothecary Chen Xiao froze once more. What the other party said was true. He had obtained a cauldron recently and it was much better than the one he had been using. He had been treating it as a precious treasure, stroking it daily. If he could, he would even sleep beside it every day. This cauldron was taken from the hands of a corpse, one that had departed not too long ago. This person gave him the cauldron in hopes that he would take revenge for him. However, his enemy was way too powerful, so he only agreed to do so casually back then. He did not intend to exact vengeance in his stead. After which, the person died and he no longer bothered about the matter. Could he mean this cauldron? He obtained his cauldron clandestinely, not even his family members knew of it. How did he know of it? Apothecary Chen Xiao took a good look at the young man before him once more. This time, agitation could be seen on his face, as though staring at a spectre. All right, who's the next one? Ignoring the elder, Zhongxian turned to look at the other 8 remaining examiners. Actually, Chen Xiao was inflicted with not an illness but a curse. He agreed to seek vengeance in another's stead, and in exchange, the other party gave him his most precious treasure. However, he went against his words and the other party predicted that he would do so. As such, he imprinted the curse on the cauldron. If he got close to it, his life would be gnawed away. Even though it wouldn't cause any illness or side effects, his lifespan would reduce tremendously. Unless he made up his mind to exact vengeance for the other party. Of course, Zhongxian wouldn't say these words out loud. Putting aside the fact that he had barely met Apothecary Chen Xiao and wasn't indebted to him, more importantly, the other party was an ungrateful person. He made promises but didn't fulfill them. Zhongxian despised these kinds of people. After consecutively getting 2 apothecaries to admit defeat, none of the other examiners volunteered to take him on. No matter how foolish the other 8 were, it was clear at this point that Zhongxian was someone with true ability. For a long time, the entire hall was silent and no one dared to step forward. If none of you wish to continue the pill debate, please admit defeat and declare me the victor. Zhongxian smiled. Tranquil heart pill requires your heart to be calm to forge. Under usual circumstances, you need to adjust your state of mind for 3 days through consuming vegetarian meals and cleansing yourself with water. Given how they had to forge the pill out of a sudden without making the necessary adjustments in their state of mind, it is natural that the pills they forged would be affected by their emotions. As long as we avoid forging such pills, he should be unable to point out any flaws. Indeed, only the forging of Tranquil Heart Pill is affected by your emotions and state of mind. The effects of such for other pills are minimal, so it will do as long as we do not forge Tranquil Heart Pills. Muttering broke out among the crowd and soon a voice rang out. I will face him. An apothecary stood up. It was a middle-aged man about the same age as Du Man. He had a square-shaped face and his eyes shone with determination and calm. It's Apothecary Cheng Jiang. He is the apothecary who possesses the greatest potential among us all. Just within 3 years of becoming an apothecary, he was already able to forge more than a dozen kinds of pills. With sufficient time, there is a high possibility of him surpassing guild leader Ouyang. Nothing will go wrong since he's the one making the move. The eyes of the crowd lit up. Initially, everyone was resolute to pulling this Zhongxian lad off his high horse. Yet two apothecaries, Meng Yang and Chen Xiao, who challenged him had fallen to him. This struck a blow at their confidence and they urgently needed someone to boost their morale. Zhongxian, you were able to notice the slightest details in the previous two clashes, to the point of even discerning an apothecary's vitality, emotional state, and mental state. I am impressed. Walking out, Apothecary Cheng Jiang nodded his head in approval with a smile. I am unworthy of your praise. Zhongxian replied. You were even able to discern the killing intent from Apothecary Meng Yang. If I were to forge a tranquil heart pill, my flaws would surely be unable to escape from your notice. Thus, if I may propose presumptuously, I would like to increase the difficulty of the challenge. I wonder if you're brave enough to accept. Apothecary Cheng Jiang said. I am willing to listen to the details. Upon hearing that the other party wanted to increase the difficulty of the challenge, Zhongxian looked interested. I have just created a new pill forging technique and come up with a name for it a few days ago. I have not displayed it to anyone before. If I gave this problem to you, even if you are learned in all methods that have existed since immemorial times, you will surely find it hard to answer. Apothecary Cheng Jiang said. Thus, I contemplated and decided against having you give the name of my technique. As long as you can name 3 pill forging techniques I referenced from, I am willing to admit defeat. Creating a new pill forging technique? Incredible. Pill forging techniques were similar to the battle techniques of a fighter. Those who could create one of their own were definitely talented individuals, people who left their mark on history. As long as they did not burn out before their time was up, it was just a matter of time before they made a name for themselves. Upon hearing his words, the other apothecaries looked at him, full of admiration. Apothecary Cheng Shaw is remarkable. This question is truly difficult. Indeed. Since it is a brand new pill forging technique, it is bound to be different from the originals. Compared to pointing out the flaws in pill forging techniques, to identify the references in a newly created pill forging technique, 3 at that, the difficulty is much greater. This time, Zhongxian will most probably be defeated. Of course, this is such a difficult question. Even a 3-star apothecary would be stumped by it, much less an apprentice apothecary. The crowd couldn't help but lament Zhongxian's predicament. In some Chinese religions and culture, eating meat can be considered to be a sin due to the bloodshed resulted in its production. Sometimes it's associated with state of mind. Those who consume meat tend to be more short-tempered, whereas those who consume vegetarian meals tend to be calmer. Chapter 113. Forging technique. Telling the references from a complete pill forging technique using an analogy was like creating a solution of water from numerous wells and demanding for another to identify the origin of the water. It was an impossible task. Unless one witnessed him creating the pill forging technique step by step, it would be impossible to identify 3 references. The difficulty of the task Cheng Jiang proposed, compared to simply finding the flaws in a pill forging technique, was at least 5 times harder. Zhongxian's eyes narrowed. As expected of the apothecaries, they weren't as easy to deal with as he expected. This fellow might be a bundle of smiles and look magnanimous. However, he was truly the most shameless of the group. Even if Zhongxian agreed, identifying the references in a pill forging technique was basically an impossible task. Given how Zhongxian raised the difficulty earlier, the privilege should be extended to the other party as well. If he disagreed with it, other people might criticize him because of that in the future, thus leaving a stain on his reputation. Why? I know that this is a difficult matter to ask, and it is normal that you will reject me. However, if you reject my offer, can I consider it your loss? Cheng Jiang grinned widely. Loss? Zhongxian shook his head. It just happens that I would like to see Apothecary Cheng's new forging technique. Let's begin. This method of his would normally be effective against other people, making them fly into a panic. However, it was ineffective against Zhongxian. The reason why Zhongxian could identify flaws in the pill forging techniques of others wasn't because of his discernment ability. Rather, it was because he possessed the library of Heaven's Path. As long as the library remained with him, regardless of whatever forging technique, whether it was just created or yet to be created, they would all be clearly displayed in the form of a book. This was no problem for him at all. All right. Seeing him agree to it, a gleam flashed across Apothecary Cheng Jiang's eyes. The corners of his lips crept upwards as he gathered the necessary medicinal herbs and headed to the cauldron. Hualala. The medicinal herbs flew in the air. His every action was fluid and elegant. Looking it from afar, there was a unique sense of aesthetics to it. It is indeed a new forging technique. I have never seen it before. If I'm not mistaken, he is forging Jushi Pill. Yes. Jushi Pill is useful to people of cultivation realms below Fighter 7 Dan. It is exceptionally useful for those in the Jushi realm. It isn't a valuable pill in comparison to the others, but it is one of the most useful ones to the fighters. Usually, this is the pill apprentice apothecaries will practice for the pill forging examination. As such, most apothecaries are extremely familiar with the method to forging it. This is also the reason why Apothecary Cheng Jiang is able to better showcase the uniqueness of his forging technique. Furthermore, his motions are more fluid, making it difficult for others to discern the references. In any case, I am unable to tell the pill forging techniques he referenced from. Me neither. The apothecaries watched Cheng Jiang for a moment before shaking their heads. Apothecary Cheng sure is vicious. Standing by the side, Ouyang Cheng shook his head. Given his standard as a one-star apothecary, he is able to forge the most basic Jushi pill easily with fluid motions, making it difficult for others to discern the forging method easily. Furthermore, given the short time required to forge it, you couldn't analyze it even if you wanted to. Looks like Zhongxian will probably fail here. Apothecary Cheng Jiang could forge more difficult grade 1 pills, but it would be troublesome for him. He couldn't forge them as easily as he could the Jushi pill. This was just like how Yang Guo could wield the heavy iron sword, but he was unable to control it as freely as he wished. On the other hand, if he forged the most basic Jushi pill, it was like Yang Guo wielding an ordinary sword instead, effortless. This apothecary Cheng Jiang may have had a wide smile on his face, but he was actually the most scheming of them all. Not only were his movements fast in forging Jushi pill, the time required to forge it was also short. A normal grade 1 pill would take at least half an hour to forge. On the other hand, Jushi pill could be forged in less than 15 minutes. Seeing 3 references in such a short period of time? How was that possible? It was clear that he is intended to do in Zhongxian. Is he going to fail? Upon hearing Ouyang Cheng's judgment, Wen Shui clenches her fists tightly. It should be difficult for him to pass this test. Ouyang Cheng sighed. Interesting. Initially, he didn't bear any ill intent for this Cheng Jiang. However, he didn't expect this fellow to be so despicable and use such low-handed methods. Zhongxian's gaze turned icy. As a cultured, knowledgeable, ambitious, and worldly transcender, how could he allow others to bully him without trying to retaliate? Finally, the Jushi pill was successfully forged. A total of 7 or 8 pills rolled out from the cauldron. I am done forging. Zhongxian, please. Apothecary Cheng Jiang looked at him and chuckled with confidence. It was true that his forging technique had more than 3 references to other forging techniques. However, his movements just now were extremely fast and fluid. It was almost an impossible task for the other party to see through any of them. Besides, even if the other party was right, he could deny it. There are so many forging techniques, and naturally, given how no one here could see through the references behind his forging technique, it was up to him to say whatever he wanted. For a brat who came from some remote corner to use me as a stepping stone to achieve victory in the pill debate. Dream on. If I can point out 3 references in your forging technique, will you admit defeat? Zhongxian looked at him with a hint of amusement in his eyes. Of course. I am an official apothecary. Given my standing, there is no reason I would go back on my words just to deal with an apprentice apothecary. Apothecary Cheng Jiang flung his sleeves haughtily. Arrogance exuded from his tone. Great. Since you have put it like that, then this matter is simple. Zhongxian nodded his head and walked forward. He circled around the cauldron once before lowering his head to look at the juicy pill in his hand. He pinched one and held it up, placed it before his nose, and took a whiff of its scent. This juicy pill has vibrant colors and a radiant outer appearance. Going by conventional standards, it should have already reached perfection, Zhong Xian complimented. However, his tone abruptly changed. However, due to the limitations of Apothecary Cheng's forging technique, perfection is already the limit. It is impossible for him to forge an inscribed pill. It is just a juicy pill. What's the use of forging an inscribed pill? Apothecary Cheng Jiang scoffed. This juicy pill was the most basic pill an apothecary could forge. It increased the rate at which a fighter could gather spiritual energy from the surroundings. It was a waste of an inscribed pill to occur in this kind of fundamental pill. That's true. Zhong Xian nodded his head, reluctant to tug with him on this matter. Instead, he smiled and continued, "The question I should answer is with regards to your forging technique. There is no point debating this topic. Alright, since it's a request on your part, I will answer your question. Putting aside the forging techniques you have referenced previously, let's first talk about how many forging techniques you know. With this, it should be easier to conclude which are the few forging techniques you referenced from. 3 years ago, Apothecary Cheng Jiang used Rain of 10,000 Streams to forge a Grade 1 Vitality Rejuvenation pill to pass the apothecary examinations. In the same year, you learned Convergence of the North River and successfully forged Soul Soothing Pill. The spring of the second year, during Apothecary Bai Ming's birthday celebration, you sneaked into his study and coped his illusory silk hands with which you forged Body Nourishment Pill. From then on, your reputation spread far and wide. That winter, when you asked Apothecary Lin Mu to demonstrate his frost-threaded hands, you secretly took it for yourself. In the summer last year, you spent 50,000 gold coins to bribe Apothecary Jin Chen's butler to duplicate a copy of Golden Spring Fleeting Cloud Dexterity. In the third month of last year, you enticed Du Man's apothecary apprentice Zhu Huahua and obtained Apothecary Du's personal forging technique 100 intertwining method. Now, if I added them up, Rain of 10,000 Streams, Convergence of the North River. Summing together all of these forging techniques, there are a total of 12 of them. Zhong Xian counted slowly as though counting his own precious treasures. After that, he turned around to look at the apothecary whose face had paled at some point. Apothecary Cheng Jiang, are there any mistakes with what I said? You. Cheng Jiang stumbled backward. His eyes narrowed, as though he had seen a freak. Yang Guo is a character from Return of the Condor Heroes by Jin Yong. In the novel, after his hand was chopped off by Guo Fu, he was saved by a condor and chances upon the grave of a great swordsman, Dugu Qiubai. There are 4 swords there, one of them being the heavy iron sword. The sword is known for being extremely heavy and difficult to utilize in battle. Yang Guo took a long time before he managed to gain control of it. Chapter 114, Convergence of 10,000 Tributaries. What? Cheng Jiang, is what he said true? I demonstrated the skill to you out of kindness, and you secretly picked up my frost-threaded hands. Damn it, no wonder I wasn't able to find you for a long time after the banquet started. Confess, when did you sneak into my study? Cheng Jiang, we are fellow apothecaries. If you wish to learn my forging technique, you could have asked me sincerely for it and I might have taught it to you. Yet you chose to entice my apprentice with benefits to obtain my 100 intertwining method. Aren't you being too underhanded? A pill forging technique was similar to a fighter's battle techniques. Most of them were exclusive to a certain clan or sect and mustn't be taught to outsiders lightly. This Cheng Jiang actually secretly learned the forging techniques of other apothecaries without their permission, even resorting to stealing to obtain them. Upon hearing Zhong Xian's words, the entire room burst into outrage. Everyone here was a member of the Apothecary Guild and they often exchanged knowledge on the art of pill forging. If he was truly interested in learning their pill forging method, he could indicate his interest, conduct a ceremony to acknowledge the other party as his mentor, and learn their skills. Then their relationship could be annulled and they would still be friends. However, secretly learning in this manner was akin to a fighter stealing the battle techniques of other experts. It was a huge taboo that one should never commit. Everyone, Don't listen to his nonsense. Sensing the heated atmosphere, anger and fear flashed across Cheng Jiang's face as he hurriedly tried to absolve himself from the accusations. I'm spouting nonsense. Zhong Xian walked forward. The corners of his lips crept upwards. Just now, to forge Jushi pill, Apothecary Cheng took a total of 23 medicinal herbs. I shouldn't be mistaken on this aspect. You're right. All certified apothecaries were aware of the medicinal herbs required to forge Jushi pill. This wasn't a secret, thus there was no need to deny it. When you mixed white lotus grass, wisteria root, and golden river flower together, your pinky was angled backward whereas the tip was bent forward, as though picking a flower. If I'm not wrong, this method is referenced from Apothecary by Ming's illusory silk hand. Afterwards, when you extracted the green sun essence, your 5 fingers opened wide with which you gently stroked the herb, as though extracting frigid air from ice, not daring to exert too much strength. This should be referenced from Apothecary Lin Mu's frost-threaded hands. Then, when you added purple almond grass and white manna flower in, to prevent the properties of the two from clashing with one another, you specially circled them twice around the cauldron before throwing them in. Through doing so, not only would the medicinal properties of both be better utilized, they would only lose their violent nature. As such, their properties would not clash with one another. Apothecary Jin Chen's golden spring fleeting cloud dexterity seems identical to this move of yours. After that, when the pill was forged, in order to prevent it from coming into contact with the searing cauldron, you used Junqi to produce a unique air net with your hands. Even though your movements are inconspicuous, if someone watches closely, they are still recognizable. Apothecary Du Man, isn't that similar to your 100 intertwining method? Zhong Xian didn't allow the other party to refute his words at all, dumping it all out en masse. At this point, he paused for a moment as he smiled brightly. If Apothecary Cheng thinks what that I just said is nonsense and that I made it all up, the record crystal has been recording the entire procedure and we can look through it anytime. Everyone can bear testimony to whether the words I've been saying are nonsense. You. Cheng Jiang face paled and his entire body trembled uncontrollably. He knew that what the other party said was completely true. Apothecaries had their own schools and inheritances. In order to improve swiftly, he went around stealing other people's techniques. He thought that he had done it very secretly. How did this fellow know? Furthermore, down to the very details. In an instant, he felt like he was standing nude before everyone else. A deep feeling of fear rose from the depths of his heart. What? Do you still think I'm spouting nonsense? Ignoring the other party whose face had paled to the extreme at this moment, Zhong Xian stepped forward. If you think there's any mistake in what I've said, is this forging technique that you self-created through merging everyone's forging techniques called convergence of 10,000 tributaries? You're a demon. Apothecary Cheng Jiang staggered and fell to the floor. The name he had come up with for this forging technique was indeed convergence of 10,000 tributaries. It was a name he had come up with a few days ago and he had yet to tell anyone about it. In fact, not even his apprentices knew of it, so why does the other party know the name? To be able to see through everything down to the very details such that him stealing the other people's forging technique was unable to escape his eyes. Was this fellow a demon? How can this be? Apothecary Cheng Jiang was terrified. Convergence of 10,000 tributaries, you utilized all of the different techniques to forge that river of yours. How arrogant. It sure is an incredible forging technique. To steal our forging techniques, integrate them together as one and claim that you have created a new forging technique. Cheng Jiang, you sure are capable. To think that I've regarded you as my brother and my best buddy, yet you chose to do this to me. Fine. From now on, our relationship is severed. Upon seeing the expression on Cheng Jiang's face and recalling the movements he made while forging the pill recently, they would truly be fools if they were still unable to understand the situation. The faces of the apothecaries here turned red in fury. Their wrathful eyes fixated on Cheng Jiang. They weren't exceptionally skilled apothecaries and their forging techniques were not really secrets that must not be leaked to the outside. But, this fellow, if he had expressed his desire to learn their techniques, getting rejected wasn't really a big deal. However, His actions of learning their techniques behind their back was definitely something an apothecary should never do. Not only that, he had even arrogantly bragged that he had created a new technique by himself. Created? Your head. You simply took all of our techniques to form a hodgepodge. You call that creating a new technique? If that's so, everyone would be creating new techniques every day. Not to mention, naming it convergence of 10,000 tributaries. How can anyone be that shameless? At this point, they no longer viewed Cheng Jiang as their equal. Disgust was the only thing that could be seen on their faces. Please calm down. Upon seeing the indignation of the crowd, Zhongxian smiled. He interjected into their commotion and turned to look at Cheng Jiang, who was still in a state of disbelief. Apothecary Cheng Jiang, is this considered my victory? You. Seeing his smile, Apothecary Cheng Jiang shuddered. You win. I admit defeat. He has no choice but to admit defeat. The other party's ability to discern had already reached the level of demons. He feared that if he continued competing with him, more of his secrets would be revealed. As such, he could only hurriedly nod his head. At this moment, he regretted his action of intentionally making things difficult for the other party. Even though the other party had pointed out the flaws in Meng Yang and Chen Xiao's pill forging, he had clearly spared their dignity. Yet he sent a slap directly at his face, exposing his darkest secret in public. It was foreseeable that once news of these matters spread, he would lose his standing within Tianxian Kingdom's apothecary guild. He would be shunned and viewed with contempt by all. All credibility and reputation he had built up throughout the years would be completely destroyed, and others would just think of him as a fraud and villain. Upon his surrender, Zhongxian smiled. Initially, he didn't have any serious conflict with any of them, so he couldn't be bothered with the other party's personality flaws. Yet, this fellow tried to take advantage of the situation to force him into a corner. You want to humiliate me? Try it then. As a transcender with a golden ring, how can I allow myself to be humiliated by you like this? Since you decided to charge straight at me, don't blame me for not going easy on you. It just happens that I can use you to warn the others that I, Zhongxian, am not an easy target. Apothecary Cheng has admitted defeat. Zhongxian surveyed the surroundings. Anyone else? In that instant, the room fell utterly silent. Chapter 115. Acupoint Soothing Pill. Even though the person in front of them had only pointed out the flaws in the pill forging techniques of 3 apothecaries, the abilities he had revealed in doing so induced fear and terror in the remaining few. Not just them, even Chen Jiang's swift and fluid actions, factoring in the short duration he took to forge the pill, were clearly seen through by Zhongxian, who had also analyzed the origin of his movements, and deduced that he had stolen the forging techniques of others. That ability of discernment and knowledge of his was something none of the people here could match up to. 3 apothecaries have admitted defeat, 7 more to go. Who will go first? Seeing all of them silence, Zhongxian continued to stare at them. Pill debate required 10 apothecaries to admit their defeat before Zhongxian could be declared victorious. This silence continued to linger about the remaining 7 apothecaries. It was one thing if the other party's ability to discern matters was impressive, but of the 3 apothecaries he faced previously, one was exposed for being cuckolded, one turned out to be on the verge of death, and the last one had his reputation tarnished. They were only here for the pill debate. They didn't want their secrets exposed because of this. The other party's ability to discern was so incredible that he could immediately tell a difference if their state of mind was in the slightest bit off. Given such circumstances, who would still dare to challenge him? Furthermore, they couldn't admit defeat without competing in pill debate. If they did so, it was equivalent to going easy on the other party, which was considered as an act of cheating. Once revealed, they would be stripped of their apothecary qualification. As such, the awkward silence continued to linger in the atmosphere as no one dared to step forward. Please hurry up, we can't possibly continue to drag this matter on like this. Sensing the awkward atmosphere lingering about, Ouyang Cheng couldn't help saying, I'll go. After a momentary silence, Apothecary Du Man stood up. He was acquainted with Zhongxian and had even bet over him. What he thought to be an arrogant fellow turned out to be a figure with incredible capability and outstanding discernment ability. Even he himself was far from a match for him in this aspect. However, he didn't have a choice either way. After all, they couldn't continue stalling time here like this. Apothecary Du Man, allow me to go instead. Just as Du Man was about to start forging so that Zhongxian could point out the flaws in the process, an elder stood up. It's Apothecary by Ming. Just now, Zhongxian exposed that Cheng Jiang had secretly learned his illusory silk hands. He was extremely furious. Why would he make a move now? I have no idea. Let's watch. Upon seeing this elder, the others shuddered. Even though Apothecary by Ming wasn't the oldest of the group, he was the most qualified and respected one. That was because he wasn't just a mere apothecary, he was also the de facto head of one of the 4 great clans in Tianxian City, the Bai clan. He was a person who held great authority and strength in his hands. Since Apothecary Bai is going to make a move, I'll back down first. Apothecary Du Man returned to his seat. He was unable to match up to Bai Ming in terms of qualifications and standing. Zhongxian, you possess incredible ability of discernment and analysis. However, you just happened to be lucky. In actuality, you don't really possess much knowledge on pill forging. After the examiner had been confirmed, Bai Ming glanced at Zhongxian, his tone hostile. It was no wonder that he was so angry. While he was angry at Cheng Jiang for stealing the secret manual passed down within his family, being exposed in public also made him feel humiliated. After all, it was shameful for the powerful Bai clan to be unable to prevent a lone apothecary from stealing from them. If word spread, the Bai clan would become a laughingstock. Lucky. Why would Apothecary Bai say that? Zhongxian was taken aback. Simple. Regardless of whether it was Meng Yang, Chen Xiao, or Cheng Jiang, the flaws you said may seem to make sense. However, if we think deeper into things, it was also possible for you to have investigated their personality flaws and the recent happenings around them beforehand, and worked backward to infer the flaws in their forging technique. Bai Ming harumphed. Worked backward? Now that Apothecary Bai said so, it does make sense. Indeed. For example, in Meng Yang's case, if you knew he killed his concubine in the morning in advance and that he had killing intent and rage within him, you could safely deduce that the tranquil heart pill he forged would be ineffective. The same for Apothecary Chen Xiao as well. If you knew he was sick and didn't have much time to live, you could infer that there would be a problem with the pills. After all, the tranquil heart pill reflects the forger's state of mind. Even a pig could tell that something would be wrong with those pills if it had heard of that information beforehand. Now that you all have put it in such a way, it truly explains a lot of things. If he had made preparations beforehand and dug up the matter of Cheng Jiang stealing our forging techniques, it would be a simple matter to guess the references in his forging technique. Bai Ming's words were like a rock thrown in water, generating countless ripples on the surface. Everyone came to a realization, seemingly understanding what had just happened. It was because they were unable to understand how the other party was able to see through those flaws that they felt fear. Now that they understood the reason, the fear they felt vanished. In fact, if they of this information beforehand, they could also make the same judgment that Zhongxian did on the flaws of the forging techniques of the previous 3. Oh, working backward? What an interesting thought. He didn't expect Apothecary Bai Ming's imagination to be so vivid. Smirking, Zhongxian continued, regardless of what methods I used, I can pass as long as I can identify the flaws in your forging technique. Indeed. It will be your win if you manage to see through the flaws in my forging technique. However, I want to change the rules as well. Apothecary Bai Ming said. Oh. The gist of it will still be the same. I will forge a pill while you identify a mistake in my forging technique. However, I want you to point out true mistakes in my forging process, such as in my skills, ability to control flames, and the way I mix the medicinal herbs together rather than involving emotions and other miscellaneous stuff. This way, you can't use the knowledge you know of beforehand to work backward to identify the flaws in my forging technique. Bai Ming harumphed. That's right. This way, he won't be able to talk about emotions and the sort. With these rules, he can't work backward to deduce the flaws even if he wants to. This is what I call pointing out flaws. The apothecaries nodded their heads in agreement. To speak the truth, Everyone had been frightened by Zhongxian's ability to point out the flaws in them. As a cultivator, charging forward and emerging victorious among millions of people who hadn't done anything against their conscience before, it would be embarrassing if this lad were to reveal their darkest secrets. Thus, the new rule that Apothecary by Ming came up with immediately received everyone's approval. He was only allowed to point out flaws in pill forging. Bringing in external matters such as murder or being on the verge of death was prohibited. Even if they were apothecaries, such scares weren't what humans could handle. Are you certain? Upon hearing the rules set by the other party, how could Zhongxian possibly remain oblivious to what they were thinking? One corner of Zhongxian's mouth curved upwards. Of course. Apothecary by Ming flung his sleeves. Now, it is a question of whether you're brave enough to accept the challenge. Zhongxian could not be bothered to argue with him over the matter. Great. Seeing him agree to it, Apothecary by Ming heaved a sigh of relief. After pondering for a moment, he grabbed a few ingredients and walked to the cauldron. Fwoosh boosh. The fire started burning furiously and Apothecary by Ming began his pill forging. Not too long after, the fire weakened and 3 round pills were extracted from the cauldron. Grade 1 pill, Acupoint Soothing Pill. It was specially prepared for Fighter 6 Dan experts to soothe their acupoints, allowing them to travel further in the Pishua realm. Back then, Elder Shong Chen spent a huge price to purchase one for Shong Bin. The latter gave it to the sky-shattering lion as the cost of teaching Zhongxian a lesson. Even so, the sky-shattering lion eventually betrayed him, filling Shong Bin with resentment against it. No matter what, the Acupoint Soothing Acupoint was considered one of the superior grade 1 pills, something that Tranquil Heart Pill was far from matching up to. Chapter 116 Apothecary by Ming's Breakdown. First half amazing. Only Apothecary by Ming possesses such capabilities. To think that he could successfully forge a Acupoint Soothing Pill under such circumstances. It is extremely difficult to forge an Acupoint Soothing Pill. Even more so, Apothecary by Ming's forging technique is so complex that I have never seen it before. Now I am curious to see what Zhongxian will say. Hihi, let's wait for the show then. Upon seeing Apothecary by Ming forging an Acupoint Soothing Pill, most of the apothecaries present laughed. The higher grade a pill was, the more complex the method required to forge it. Acupoint Soothing Pill could be considered one of the higher grade pills among the grade 1 tier and its forging method was incomparably complex. Even the rest of them were unable to perceive any mistakes in his forging technique, so how could an apprentice possibly see anything? Alright, I'm done forging the pill. Tell me, what's the name of the forging technique and the flaws in it? Sneering, Apothecary by Ming brought his breathing back to normal and gestured grandly. Even though I don't know where you got the information on us, but if you wish to successfully pass a pill debate depending solely on that, dream on. Without true capability to point out the flaws in a forging technique, you will never earn my respect. Are you sure you want me to say? A peculiar expression appeared on Zhongxian's face as he said those words. Quit trying to mystify things here. If you can't find the words, just admit defeat. Apothecary by Ming harumphed. Alright then. Zhongxian shook his head. With his hands behind his back, he slowly walked to the center of the room. The forging technique you used is called Thousand Mountain Hands and is said to have been created by a 2-star apothecary named Feng Xian. You must put the medicinal herb into the cauldron based on a special sequence, similar to the mountainous regions, one mountain after another like you're traversing the lands. Similarly, you throw the medicinal herbs in wave after wave. The way you control the fire is also based on such a sequence, strong at one moment, weak at the other. By forging pills in such a method, it is easier for the medicinal properties to fuse together and thus makes it likelier that a pill is formed. However, its flaws are also clear to see. It's difficult to raise the quality of the pill itself. Therefore, even though you managed to forge 3 Acupoint Soothing Pills successfully, they are of the lowest level. It is nearly impossible for you to reach satiation. Such forging techniques are only suitable for the mass production of pills by low-skilled apothecaries. Put bluntly, none of the slightly better apothecaries would learn such a skill, because it means putting a barrier in front of their future path. No matter how many times you practice the skill, it is impossible to raise the quality of the pill in the slightest. As a result, there is no reason for them to learn it. Unless you don't think that you have any potential left in you, that's why you are giving up on yourself. Zhongxian smiled and shot a meaningful glance at him. Apothecary by Ming, may I know if what I said is true? Upon hearing the words of the other party, Bai Ming gritted his teeth, embarrassed and angry. As the de facto head of the Bai clan, as well as a one-star apothecary, he possessed exceptional standing in the capital. Yet, by the words of the other party, he became an apothecary with low standards, no more potential left. However, he was unable to refute his words. The flaw of the 1,000 mountain hands was exactly as the other party said. Even though he was able to produce the acupoint soothing pill easily, it was difficult for him to further refine its quality. You don't need to feel gleeful over this. So what if you can point out these? You need to point out the errors in my movements previously before it can be considered your victory. Taking a deep breath, Bai Ming suppressed his anger. All right. Instead of arguing with him, Zhongxian stepped forward and walked toward the cauldron. Then allow me to start from the very basics. As long as you are an apothecary, you know that you require incredible control over the flame and the cauldron to produce high-quality pills. Earlier, Apothecary Bai Ming started forging his pills right after picking up the medicine. How much do you know about this cauldron? What about the flames? You don't need to refute my words by saying that the specifications of these cauldrons are roughly the same. I can clearly tell you that even with the same medicinal herb, flames, and cauldron, the medicine you forge can be different. This is due to a minuscule difference or a tiny mistake made by the apothecary that the pills forged will be a quality lower than what it should be. His hands stroking the cauldron, Zhongxian continued, if you don't believe me, I can show you now. This cauldron has a height of 7 kai and 3 kun and width of 3 kun and 2 kai. It was created by a 3-mo craftsman in the Stonewell workshop 7 years and 3 months ago. A total of 147 pills have been forged using and of it, of which 88 were grade 1 pills and 59 were pills lower than grade 1. During the transportation of the cauldron, it suffered 3 impacts. There are a total of 13 slight scratches throughout the entire cauldron. It won't cause too much trouble when forging ordinary pills, but it will scatter the medicinal effects and spiritual energy within the pill. As such, due to the insufficient medicinal effects harnessed within the pill, the quality of the pill will drop. 1 kai-30. 3 centimeters, 1 kun-3. 3 centimeters. This cauldron is slightly thicker than a kun and it requires an incense's time and 34 breaths for the heat to completely permeate the cauldron. Also, the thickness of the cauldron walls on the left and right are slightly different, around 3 hair strands off. Don't underestimate the difference in this thickness. With the same flames, there will be a 5% difference in the temperature between both sides. The medicinal effects of scattered floral grass and lone-eyed dragon grass of the acupoint soothing pill will be completely different when placed on either side. Are you for real? There is even such a thing for a cauldron. Upon listening to Zhongxian's casual explanations, the jaws of the apothecaries fell to the floor and they felt like they were going insane. Even though they knew that a difference in the cauldron could result in the formation of different pills, never did they imagine that there was such wisdom behind a cauldron. Furthermore, this was a cauldron that the Apothecary Guild brought in specially for this pill debate. How did he know so much about it? To even know where it was made, how thick the walls were, its size and how many pills it had forged. The heck, you are about to bash through the heavens. To see all these with a single glance, are you, a monster? Alright, I will continue to talk about the flames then. Ignoring the astonished expression on everyone's faces, Zhongxian pointed to the flames burning beneath the cauldron and continued, this is where the heat of the heavenly coal originates from, as well as the hottest part. With the heat here, even metal could be easily melted. By propelling it with a fighter's zhenqi, you can easily control the strength of the flames and thus the temperature of the cauldron. However, the flames do not come into direct contact with the medicinal herbs. They are placed in the cauldron, and in there, they form pills. How much heat from the flames permeates through the cauldron walls and how much of it is left in the cauldron is what we need to grasp clearly in our minds. Heavenly coal is a coal exceptionally suited for forging pills. Not only is it capable of reaching high temperatures, the permeability of its heat is also incredible. For normal coal, after permeating through a ton of cauldron walls or so, only 37% of the heat will be retained. On the other hand, the heavenly coal retains 46%. Only by knowing this much can you ascertain the temperature the medicinal herbs inside are under, how long it will take for the medicinal properties of the herbs to be best unleashed, and how you can forge the highest quality pill. Of course, these are only the bare basics that an apothecary needs to know, so they can't be considered as flaws. I am just casually introducing them. Zhongxian smiled and glanced at Bai Ming standing off to the side. However, I would like to ask Apothecary Bai Ming, before forging the pills, did you notice these? Apothecary Bai Ming felt his hair standing on end and he almost fainted on the spot. Notice your head. I am just forging a normal pill. Given how complicated these things are, how the heck would I know? Besides, even if I had been concerned with them, there was nothing I could do. You can't expect me to find a ruler and start measuring the entire cauldron before testing the temperature of the coal bit by bit. If I started doing so, it would be 2 days before I could start forging. Chapter 117 Apothecary Bai Ming's breakdown second half. He felt stifled within, but Bai Ming also knew that he was unable to refute Zhongxian's words. It was the basics to check the cauldron and flames of the cauldron before forging pills. Even apprentices were aware of it. His action of going straight to forging was clearly a huge mistake. Using the words in Zhongxian's previous world, if a person didn't buckle their seatbelt, check the tires, and scan the surroundings before starting to drive, they couldn't refute anything if an accident occurred. Right now, that was the emotion Bai Ming was experiencing. Lectured by an apprentice apothecary in public, yet unable to refute anything at all. It was clear just by thinking of how stifled he was at this moment. Alright, now that I have touched on the cauldron and the flames, I shall talk about the fusing of the medicinal herb. Knowing that the other party would be unable to reply to his words, Zhongxian could not be bothered to continue interrogating him over those mistakes of his. Instead, he walked over to the medicinal racks. Acupoint Soothing Pill requires a total of 47 types of herbs. Given the number of herbs that are involved in the forging process, there are herbs that complement one another, as well as herbs that clash with one another. As such, if you don't control the process properly, it is very easy for the medicinal herb to clash with one another and the pill will be ruined. Let me first talk about Apothecary Bai Ming's forging sequence. The first herb he put in was heartgrass. Heartgrass has calming properties and is resilient to high temperature. As such, it requires strong flames to extract its essence. It is correct to place it into the cauldron first so that it can come into contact with the flames earlier to incite its medicinal properties. However, 7 breaths after placing heartgrass in, he placed in the second herb, split palm flower. If I'm not wrong, that heartgrass he took was only half a year old. As such, its medicinal properties are not strong enough and most of it was concentrated on the leaves instead of the meridians. For such a herb, the medicinal effects will be swiftly released upon meeting strong flames. Under normal situations, he should have placed split palm flower in after 4 breaths. Yet, he delayed it 3 entire breaths, causing a loss in the medicinal effect by 13%. Fail. On the other hand, split palm flower has a maturity of 5 years and the medicinal effects of it is relatively stronger. He should have slowly released the split palm flowers by the left wall of the cauldron, and the duration of its descent should be roughly half a breath. During this time, the heart of the cauldron would unleash the medicinal effects of it, allowing it to better mix with heartgrass. However, Apothecary Bai Ming threw the medicinal herb straight it, depriving it of the opportunity to be heated by the cauldron in advance. As such, its medicinal effect wasn't fully unleashed and 14% of the medicinal effect was lost. Fail. The medicinal effects of these 2 herbs clash with one another, so he should have quickly placed in scattered floral grass, which has a pacifying effect for the 2. Yet he threw in the violent lone-eyed dragon grass, worsening the clash between the 2 herbs. As such, 11% of the medicinal effect was loss. Fail. The lone-eyed dragon grass is a herb with young properties. After placing it into the scorching cauldron, he should have added cooling grass to counteract its effects. Yet Apothecary by Ming added Wisdom Mothergrass instead. Wisdom Mothergrass is able to neutralize all medicinal herbs, and as such, it is the best choice to serve as a medium between herbs. However, it is precisely because of that it completely neutralized the yang properties of the lone-eyed dragon grass, greatly reducing the medicinal effect of the acupoint smoothing pill. Fail. 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 Zhong Xian spoke faster and faster, akin to a machine gun. His every word was logical with evidence to back them up. Every single failure struck like a hammer on Apothecary by Ming's face. His face grew paler and paler and his body trembled uncontrollably. Pill forging was by no means simple. Even with the same herbs, if the maturity was different, it could have different medicinal properties. Not to mention, an apothecary needed to pair them together in a way that complemented them to mix them together and such. Even for a single acupoint soothing pill, 3 days wouldn't be enough if Zhong Xian were to go in depth. This was also the reason why apothecaries were one of the frontrunners in the upper 9 paths. Everything he said is true. To recall the sequence in which Apothecary by Ming added the 47 medicinal herbs with a single look. What kind of memorization ability does he possess? The most shocking thing isn't him remembering the sequence in which the medicinal herbs were placed in. It is that he was able to tell the maturity of every single medicinal herb and come up with a method to complement them so as to best unleash its medicinal effects. Is he really human? Now that I've heard his words, an apothecary really has to take a lot of factors into account. It is no wonder that my pills are unable to reach perfection or inscribed pill. So this is the reason. Upon hearing Zhong Xian's words, everyone became mute. It was as though their heads had been smashed with a bat, their mouths agape and their eyes wide. The heck? This is what you call pill forging? What we were doing before was simply wasting herbs and insulting this occupation. Most probably, if they were to use the method he spoke of to forge this pill, the pill would be able to reach higher heights. Perfection and even inscribed pill wouldn't be problems. This was no longer a theory that a 1-star apothecary could come into contact with. Only the more advanced apothecaries would pay attention to such minute details. Everyone was dumbfounded. At this moment, the thought of suicide even ran through Apothecary by Ming's head. Listening to the words of the other party, his entire pill forging sequence was a failure. How could this be considered pill forging? He must be forging feces instead. Furthermore, at least when one forges feces, they don't waste any materials. Yet, when he forged a pill, he wasted all of the medicinal herbs used in it. Pu. The stifling sensation in his chest grew heavier and heavier, and he puked a mouthful of blood. All along, he thought of himself as talented in pill forging, and that he was truly a highly skilled apothecary. Yet, upon hearing the words of the other party, he realized that his standards couldn't even match up to that of a child. All of the confidence he held in the past was completely shattered. The current him feared to even approach a cauldron now. His body trembled violently. Just a moment ago, he stood up proudly and determinedly to punish Zhong Xian for his humiliation. Yet, at this moment, his complexion was turning more and more awful, as though he were going berserk. A moment later, he gritted his teeth. That's right. Given my standards, what kind of pills can I possibly forge? All I'm doing is wasting medicinal herbs. From today onward, I, by Ming, will not forge a single pill anymore. If I break this vow, let the heavens tear me apart. A vow resounded in the hall. What? He vowed not to forge a single pill anymore? Apothecary by Ming. Upon hearing the vow he made, everyone was flabbergasted. They couldn't help but shudder, upset at the thought of the loss of a comrade. For an apothecary to vow to never forge a single pill anymore was equivalent to bidding the world of pill forging farewell. The effort he had put in for his entire life had all gone to waste. And the reason for that was a mere apprentice apothecary pointing out the flaws in his pill forging process. Isn't he being too rash? An apothecary couldn't help but comment. If you were criticized like that, what would you do? Another apothecary responded. I. The former paused halfway through, unable to find a word to say. What the other party said was true. If he were in the place of Apothecary by Ming, upon realizing that his forging technique was nothing but flaws and the hard work he had devoted into it was nothing but rubbish, the confidence he had held for countless years would probably collapse in an instant. The moment he lost all his confidence, the trauma he received from it would cause him to be unable to forge a single pill for the rest of his life. Rather than suffer in anguish over it, he might as well simply make a vow to never forge a single pill anymore. Pill forging wasn't a joke. Mental state, skill, confidence, all of these factors were absolutely required. Without confidence, how could one be called an apothecary? To make an experienced apothecary lose all of his confidence and fear forging just by pointing out his mistakes. Such a thought flashed across their minds in an instant. Taking another glance at Zhongxian, their hearts skipped a beat. It was no wonder that he was reluctant to speak of their flaws in pill forging. It was not that he was unable to discern anything from it and resorted to other methods to make up for his weakness. Only now did they know, the other party wasn't in the least as ignorant as they thought. Rather, it was because he knew too much that he feared he would shatter the last bit of confidence they had. Brother, we would like to ask you, are you the apprentice apothecary or are we? Chapter 118 The True Pill Debate First Half I admit defeat. After declaring that he would no longer forge pills, Apothecary by Ming bowed deeply to Zhongxian. It had been slightly more than 2 hours since the beginning of the pill debate and there were already 4 apothecaries who had admitted defeat. This conclusion was unexpected for all involved. Even Ouyang Cheng shuddered in disbelief. Previously, he didn't hold high hopes for Zhongxian's victory. He didn't expect it to end up like this. It was completely one-sided. It was no wonder that he was able to achieve a perfect score on the apprentice apothecary examination, even recognizing medicinal herbs that the examiners got wrong. His abilities were simply way too impressive. On the other hand, Wen Shui's eyes were full of fear and her body trembled non-stop. To think that she had mocked a person who could leave these apothecaries speechless. Was there something wrong with her head or was she simply too gutsy? It was fortunate that the other party had no intentions of fussing over the matter with her. Otherwise, she could have even been expelled from the apothecary guild. I'll go. Upon seeing Bai Ming admit defeat and the silence that lingered around them, Du Man stepped forward. Please go easy on me. Forcing a smile onto his face, Du Man walked over to the cauldron. The pill he forged was grade 1-2. It was slightly inferior to the acupoint soothing pill and tranquil heart pill from before. His movements were fluid and swift. Soon, he managed to successfully forge the pills, all of which were at the level of satiation. The other party's attitude was amiable. Besides, they also became acquainted yesterday. As a result, Zhongxian didn't say too much and simply pointed out a few of the more obvious mistakes. The latter admitted defeat straight afterward. At this moment, out of the 10 apothecaries, 5 had already admitted defeat. The pill debate was halfway through. Let's continue. Who will be the next? With his hands behind his back, Zhongxian scanned the crowd calmly. Silence continued to linger around them. In the pill debate of other apprentice apothecaries, the examinee would always look at the examiner in fear, afraid that the other party would intentionally come up with difficult questions. Yet this fellow was the exact opposite. All of the remaining apothecaries cowered back, afraid of their names being called. If not witnessed it firsthand, no one would believe it possible. I'll go. After another moment of silence, an elder stood up. Apothecary Lin Mu. Apothecary Cheng Jiang had once used the excuse of wanting to view his skills to secretly learn his personal forging technique, frost-threaded hands. Apothecary Lin, please wait a second. This time, I would like to test him along with you. Right after Lin Mu stood up, a middle-aged man stood up as well. Apothecary Jin Chen, together. Lin Mu frowned. How can 2 people forge pills simultaneously for the other party to point out their flaws? The fact that he can see through our flaws means that his ability to discern is impressive and he has undergone good education. It's very likely that he is under the guidance of a master teacher. However, I don't believe that the knowledge he has stored in his head can be as impressive as his discernment ability, especially given his age. So, let's not forge pills and instead bring up questions. Let's not be fooled by him. Apothecary Jin Chen harumphed. This. Lin Mu was stunned. That's right, why didn't I think of this? He isn't even 20 yet. Even if he could read right after he was born, how many books could possibly be read? How much of the content of each book could he possibly recall? A true pill debate involves raising questions about pill forging for the examinee to answer. He must have known that he didn't have enough knowledge, so he intentionally heightened the difficulty to perceiving flaws in forging techniques instead. It is true that the difficulty has been raised, but if he had the guidance of a master teacher and came into contact with good education from a young age, it wouldn't be difficult for him to see through our mistake. That's right, master teachers are extremely knowledgeable, while on the other hand we are only one-star apothecaries. His discernment abilities can't possibly be weak, being the disciple of such a figure. If so, it's understandable that he sees through our mistakes. Apothecary Jin Chen's words relit the flames in the 4 remaining apothecaries, and they regained their confidence. The fact that the other party was able to see through their mistakes by viewing their pill forging could only mean that his discernment ability was outstanding. It didn't mean that he had to be knowledgeable. Since that was the case, questioning him might just turn out to be his weakness. All along, everyone had been fooled by this fellow. That's right. Lin Mu came to realization and nodded his head fervently. It was no wonder that everyone agreed with Jin Chen's view. After all, accumulation of knowledge required time and effort. This Zhong Xian, even with an optimistic estimate, couldn't possibly be 20 yet. Even if he read every day, how many books could he have possibly read? Furthermore, he still had to remember their content. You want to ask me questions instead? Not expecting these people to come up with such a conclusion after a long moment of contemplation, Zhong Xian simply smiled faintly in response. All right then, let's begin. After reading through the books in the basic tier book collection vault and the teacher's compendium pavilion, the knowledge in his head right now was significantly greater than that of these apothecaries. Even if they wanted to test his knowledge, he didn't have anything to fear. I'll see whether you can retain your confidence when I stump you later on. Upon seeing that the other party held no fear whatsoever, a cold gleam flashed across Apothecary Jin Chen's eyes. According to the rules of a normal pill debate, I can raise 3 questions. If you are able to answer all of them, I will have to admit defeat. On the other hand, if you fail to answer any one of the 3, you will have failed. All that you have accomplished beforehand would go to waste. There was a complete list of rules and regulations for pill debate. The 10 apothecaries weren't allowed to bring up as many questions as they pleased. Otherwise, wouldn't the examinee tire himself to death when undergoing pill debate? The examiners could only pose 3 questions each, and if the other party's answers were correct, they had to admit defeat. However, if he couldn't answer any one of the questions or he answered erroneously, it would be a straight failure, regardless of how many questions he had answered before that. Sure. Zhong Xian was also well aware of the rules. He nodded his head. All right then, here is my first question. When forging a grade 1 body tempering pill, even when the pill comes out from the same cauldron and was at the same level of quality, it is possible for one pill to have outstanding effects while another has minuscule effects. What are the reasons behind this? Apothecary Jin Chen asked. Upon hearing this question, the other apothecary's attention was piqued. Body tempering pill was a pill often consumed by fighter 4 Dan. It could temper a person's physical body, allowing one to improve swiftly in the Pigu realm. This was also the reason why they often forged such a pill. However, just like what Apothecary Jin Chen said, there would often be situations in which the medicinal effects in each pill were different despite coming from the same cauldron. Consuming the pills that came from the same cauldron, some experienced tremendous effects and advance far in the Pigu realm while others found it completely ineffective for them. Apothecary Jin Chen sure picked a difficult question. Zhong Xian shook his head. There is no clear answer to this question in the entire Tianxian kingdom. Yet you posed this question to me. How do you expect me to answer it? However, other people may be unable to say anything about this subject, but I have my own ways. Smiling lightly, Zhong Xian said, as for the matter you said, an apothecary named Cheng Yi had already proposed it 37 years ago. Back then, he gathered 23 apothecaries and researched the matter for 3 days straight. He wrote the conclusion to their discussions in a book titled Cheng Yi's Body Tempering Theories. If you have read it, you should know what his conclusion is. He thinks that the reason for this difference has something to do with the constitution of a cultivator. Some people are born with a body compatible with body tempering pill while others' physique may be resistant to it. It's just like how some people have a high tolerance for alcohol while others don't. Back then, this theory received the approval of many people. However, 18 years ago, 3-star apothecary Zhong Jian noticed something that disputed this theory. If it was due to the constitution of an individual, then why was the second consumed pill effective for some individuals when the first one wasn't? Chapter 119 The True Pill Debate Second Half. Clearly, the theory about the difference being attributed to the constitution does not hold. Thus, apothecary Zhong Jian investigated the matter and wrote the conclusion of his research into Discussions of Tempering Pill. This book clearly details his opinions, and he disagrees with the notion that the difference in effects of the body tempering pill is due to one's constitution. Rather, it was because the medicinal effects of the herbs weren't distributed fairly among the different pills during the forging process. As such, even in the same cauldron and among pills of the same quality, there could be different medicinal effect. This theory was accepted for a few years until 12 years ago, when someone cast doubts and overthrew it. The one who doubted the theory wasn't an apothecary but a 1-star master teacher. He questioned, if the medicinal effects weren't distributed fairly among the different pill, then why did such a phenomenon only occur to body tempering pills and not other pills? Therefore, he proposed a bold suggestion. It was recorded in Ning Han's verbal records. This book wasn't widely sold and there is only a single copy of it in the Guild's basic tierbook collection vault. If you all haven't read it, it is in the 19th bookshelf, at the extreme right corner. Zhong Xian chuckled and continued, this master teacher named Ning Han came up with a bold proposal. He thinks that the reason there was such an occurrence among body tempering pills was because of the difference between the maturity of the herbs and the forging technique of the apothecaries. Of course, he only brought it up as a theory and didn't experiment. 8 years ago, apothecary Zhao Yu from Hongshen Kingdom received an epiphany from this book and conducted an experiment. He changed 18 of the main medicinal herbs used in the pill and tried forging it using 42 different kinds of forging techniques. He wrote his conclusion in a book titled Detailed Explanation of Body Tempering. It just so happens that there is one of them in our basic tierbook collection vault. It is on the 27th row, on the upper left corner, beside Yang Zhen's pill forging guide and the method to forging jade blood pill. If all of you doubt my words, you can find someone to fetch it here. I believe that the answer in the book is the most accurate one, and it should be able to answer your question. At this point, Zhong Xian stopped and gestured for Ouyang Cheng to dispatch someone to fetch the book. There's no need. Upon hearing Zhong Xian's explanation, the complexion of apothecary Jin Chen, who was still gleeful a moment ago, darkened to the color of the bottom of a wok and he stumbled 2 steps backward. In an instant, he seemed to have aged many years. What? If we don't fetch the book here, I fear that apothecary Jin will not accept my answer, Zhong Xian said. Your answer is correct. I have read the book and it is identical to what you said. Apothecary Jin Chen nodded his head. Correct. Identical? That shouldn't be possible. Apothecary Jin Chen simply raised a casual question and he was able to answer it so simply. Furthermore, out of the countless books in the vault, he was able to remember its exact position. How is that possible? Is he still human? You must be pulling my leg. Upon hearing his acknowledgement, the room broke into a commotion once more. Previously, they thought that due to the limitations of his age, Zhong Xian wouldn't have the time to read many books. After this round, they realized that compared to him, they were the ones who hadn't read many books. Not only was the other party able to accurately remember the contents, time the book was written, and title of the book, he was even able to point out its exact location in the vault. For them, it would already be wonderful if they could remember the contents detailed within. Looked like there really was a huge difference between humans. Since apothecary Jin Chen has acknowledged my answer to be correct, let's proceed on to the second question. Zhong Xian chuckled. You want to compete with me in memorization ability? What a joke. I have the library of heaven's path in my mind. With a jolt of my consciousness, the book comes flying to me. I only have to read according to it. Regardless of how good your memory is, you can't possibly be more accurate than me. The second question. When forging a grade 1 strength enhancement pill, why do cracks appear on a cauldron, making it difficult to continue with the forging? Apothecary Jin Chen pondered for an entire 10 minutes before asking. Incredible. He chose an excellent question. Indeed, the cauldron often cracks while forging a grade 1 strength enhancement pill. On the surface, it seems like an apothecary's question, but to answer the question, you require knowledge of smithing as well. Indeed, let's see how he will answer the question. Upon hearing Apothecary Jin Chen's second question, everyone's attention was piqued again. An apothecary's cauldron was forged by blacksmiths, and the matter of it breaking during pill forging wasn't strictly within the boundaries of pill forging anymore. However, if one scrutinized the question carefully, it was still related to pill forging. It was precisely because it lay at the boundaries of the two that many apothecaries did not bother to learn about it, let alone answering such a question. Since everyone could tell what he was trying to do, how could Zhong Xian remain oblivious? The corners of his lips curled upward and he replied, as for this problem, Apothecary Wu Xiao's cauldron maintenance, Apothecary Zhao Qian's important matters to note for pill forging, Apothecary Niu Xian's miscellaneous things you have to know, Apothecary Pangbo's protect your new cauldron. Without pausing, Zhong Xian listed the titles of dozens of books before concluding. The answers are detailed in these books. Actually, it wasn't really a difficult question. The cauldrons that you all use are made of ordinary 9 refinement metal. This metal may be strong, but it is unable to withstand the clash between extreme cold and heat. The main ingredient required for strength enhancement pill is the blood of a cold attribute savage beast. When something that cold comes into contact with the hot cauldron, it's natural that the cauldron's unable to withstand it. If you wish to resolve the problem, it is best to use heavy iron cauldron instead. Or you can also change your cauldron every time after you forge strength enhancement pills. Zhong Xian smiled. This question might seem difficult, but it was recorded in the books of the basic tier book collection vault as well. It was just that the number of books in the vault was too vast and the apprentices in the guild would often choose to research pill forging techniques so that they could become an official apothecary faster. As a result, there was no reason for them to look into these kinds of miscellaneous book. Furthermore, after becoming an official apothecary, one's standing would become completely different. With more guests paying them a visit and with more authority, they would have less time to read books. There were many things that they could learn from the book collection vault, but they never found the time to look for it and as such they were ignorant of them. This was precisely the reason why the other apothecaries were unable to answer such questions. On the other hand, for Zhong Xian, who had duplicated a basic tier book collection vault in his mind, he had no difficulty answering this question at all. I wonder if Apothecary Jin Chen is satisfied with my answer. If not, I can still go on. There's no need, your answer is correct. Cold sweat appeared on Apothecary Jin Chen's forehead. When he started to forge strength enhancement pills, he met with such a problem. So he went around asking others to seek an answer. Eventually, he found his answer in a book, and that book was one of the dozen books which Zhong Xian had just listed, Protect Your New Cauldron by Apothecary Pangbo. He thought that this was the only book which had detailed information on this subject, so he raised this question to trouble the other party. Yet this fellow was able to list more than a dozen books in a breath. It was fortunate that he didn't name the book earlier. Otherwise, he would be humiliated when the other party listed this huge collection of books. The heck, what is the head of this fellow made of? How could he remember everything so clearly? Upon seeing this situation, Ouyang Cheng and Du Man exchanged glances and smiled wryly. This was nothing. If you all knew that this fellow could even point out the specific page in the book, you probably wouldn't have insisted on conducting your test like that. In fact, the other party proposing to point out flaws in their forging technique was indeed raising the difficulty for him. If you wish to triumph against him in a competition of knowledge, we're afraid that you could only do it in your dreams. Chapter 120. Not a thing. Since I've answered the second question already, name your third one. Seeing the other party conceding the second question, Zhongxian couldn't be bothered to continue lingering about the matter. I admit defeat. These are already the two most difficult questions I can think of. I will just be making a mockery of myself if I continue asking. Apothecary Jin Chen shook his head. The other party's action of listing out the names of so many books felled his confidence. He knew that if he continued like this, the only one being embarrassed would be him. He might as well surrender at this point. At least he could retain some dignity. You aren't going to ask the third question? Zhongxian was taken aback for a moment before coming to a realization. Since he was able to easily answer the most difficult questions he could come up with, he would most likely be humiliating himself if he continued. Zhongxian was impressed with Apothecary Jin Chen's decisiveness. It's your turn. He turned around to look at Lin Mu. Upon seeing Zhongxian's attention turned onto him, Apothecary Lin Mu gritted his teeth and asked, I have a question which, honestly speaking, I don't have an answer to either. If you can't answer it, it won't be considered your defeat. However, if you can answer it, I will admit defeat right away. It will be pointless even if I ask any further than that anyway. In the pill debate, the examiner had to know the answers to the questions they were posing. Otherwise, when you don't even know the answer yourself, how can you determine whether the other party's answer is correct? Now that Apothecary Lin Mu had confessed that he wasn't able to answer this question either, logically speaking, it was already beyond the boundaries of the pill debate. Zhongxian could reject to answer his question. It wouldn't be considered his defeat if he chose to do so. Speak. Zhongxian casually said. Reject. Are you kidding? Since I can answer two fewer questions, it is obvious that I should answer his question. I have been researching meridian expansion pill for a very long and regardless of the forging method, the medicinal herbs, or the cauldron, I double-check them to make sure there is nothing wrong with them. But for some reason, I am unable to form the pill. I would like you to tell me the reason for my failure. Apothecary Lin Mu asked, after hesitating for a moment. What kind of question is this? Aren't you being a little too difficult here? That's right, you should find the reason behind why you're unable to successfully forge a pill yourself. How do you expect him to answer that question out of the blue? Upon hearing Lin Mu's words, everyone was dumbfounded for a moment before peculiar expressions crept onto their faces. When posing a question during a pill debate, one had to ask something that the other party could answer. Asking the other party how many moles you had on your body, how many meals you had yesterday, how many women you had relationships with. Even gods would be unable to answer these questions. Right now, Lin Mu's question was similar to those. You simply said that you were unable to forge the meridian expansion pill. How do you expect the other party to answer your query? Cough cough, Apothecary Lin Mu, you have to ask a question with basis behind it. This question isn't suitable, you should switch to another one. Ouyang Cheng, who was conducting the pill debate, couldn't stand looking at the situation any longer and spoke up. I was being too rash. Upon hearing the words of the others, Lin Mu realized that his question was inappropriate. Thus, he shook his head, and just as he was about to say something else, Zhongxian beat him to it. You weren't really rash. How about this, you try to forge a meridian expansion pill for me first. I can't do anything about it through just your descriptions alone. All right. Lin Mu didn't expect the other party to agree. Nodding his head, he walked over to the cauldron. Actually, he didn't intend to ask this question initially, it simply popped into his mind all of a sudden. Recently, he had been thinking of forging meridian expansion pills, but for some reason, he was unable to succeed. He had researched many different books, tried many different forging techniques, and everything he could think of, but his forging still ended in failure. Upon seeing Zhongxian pointing out the mistakes of the others so easily, he couldn't help asking him. As long as he was able to find the mistake behind it, he was confident that with his skills he could successfully forge it. Thinking that it was impertinent to ask this of him on such an occasion, he thought that the Zhongxian would reject his question. He didn't expect him to actually accept his question. Fwoosh boosh. The flames burned furiously and all kinds of medicinal herbs flew inside. Lin Mu's 10 fingers looked like they were playing the zither, continuously dancing all about. Peering from afar, it seemed as though he were playing a heavenly tune instead of pill forging. With a single look, Zhongxian could tell that the apothecary before him had immersed himself in the art of pill forging for countless years and was already well versed in it. With such skills and a completely flawless forging sequence, he was still unable to successfully form the pills. This perplexed him. There is no errors at all. With such skills, he could successfully forge a strength enhancement pill. Why would he be unable to form the meridian expansion pill? Indeed, that's strange. Everyone's attention gathered on apothecary Lin Mu as he started his forging. The more they watched, the more puzzled they became. It was exactly as he said. Regardless of whether it was the medicinal herb, his movements, or any other significant factors, there wasn't a single error at all. Reasonably speaking, he should at least be able to form the pills. In fact, the pill would likely reach satiation. To be unable to form the pills, that was impossible. Unfortunately, reality glared straight back at them. Soon, the flames died down, and upon lifting the lid of the cauldron, a black sludge of medicinal waste presented itself before the people. Fail. This doesn't make sense. Ouyang Cheng's wrinkled his brow to the point it folded into creases. As the guild leader of the Apothecary Guild and a one-star intermediate stage apothecary, the highest of the group here, his discernment ability was also outstanding. After looking at the entire process, his conclusion was the same as the others, that pills would be formed. Yet the results were contrary to his expectations. A puzzled expression hung on his face and he contemplated the matter seriously. Sigh. Upon seeing the pitch-black medicinal waste in the cauldron, Apothecary Lin Mu sighed and shook his head. He lifted his head to look at the young man. This is the question I would like to ask you. If you can answer it, I will admit defeat straight away. However, if you can't answer, I will switch to a different question. It won't affect the results of the pill debate. Can't answer? Zhongxian laughed. Stepping over to the cauldron, he circled around it and examined the medicinal waste. After that, he lifted his head to look at Apothecary Lin Mu with a bizarre expression on his face. Apothecary Lin Mu sure is vigorous despite your age. I never thought it possible. Vigorous despite my age? Lin Mu was taken aback. What does me being vigorous have to do with whether I am able to successfully forge the pill or not? Is there even a relationship between the two? The other apothecaries also looked over with doubtful expressions. Previously, they would have publicly criticized him and doubted his words. However, after witnessing his vast knowledge and his ability, they understood that he had good reason for saying such words. Indeed. Upon walking over, I noticed a fragrance unique to women on Apothecary Lin's body. Furthermore, the scent is refreshing, pure and full of life. If I'm not wrong, she should not yet be 18 years old, Zhongxian said. Indeed, I just brought a concubine into my household. She hasn't reached 18 yet. Apothecary Lin Mu's face flushed red. He was already nearing 70. He had a foot in the grave, but he had brought a 17-year-old concubine back home. Even though it didn't mean anything much in this world, he was still embarrassed to have the fact pointed out in front of so many other apothecaries. Could it be that the reason why I am unable to forge the meridian expansion pill is because of my concubine? Soon, Lin Mu arrived at a conclusion. Puzzled, he stared at Zhongxian. If there was no relationship between the two, given Zhongxian's previous actions, he probably wouldn't point it out. Just that, how was accepting a concubine related to forging pills? They were two completely different things. You're right. If I'm not wrong, that concubine of yours isn't a thing. Zhongxian pondered for a moment before replying calmly. Not a thing. Lin Mu was flabbergasted for a moment before frowning. Infuriated, displeasure showed on his face. Why did you start insulting her? Chapter 121. Vying to go first, I asked you to look for the flaws in my method in forging the meridian expansion pill, yet you insulted my concubine, saying that she wasn't a person. What do you mean by that? Even though Lin Mu was good-natured, he was still displeased by those words. Not only did his face darken, the others also had bizarre expressions on theirs. What was going on? Why did he suddenly start insulting others? Apothecary Lin, please calm down. Zhongxian seemed to have guessed that the other party would react like that, and he looked at him playfully. Have you been working hard every day, not resting even during daytime? Upon being posed with such a question, Lin Mu's face reddened and he was a little embarrassed. I just married my concubine, so I might have worked a little hard. An old man like him married a young wife, not to mention a beautiful lady who wasn't 18 yet, so it was no wonder that Lin Mu would shower plenty of love on her. If he could, he would be in bed all day long. Haha. Apothecary Lin, I didn't expect that you would still be so active. You are truly vigorous, truly an old man with the zeal of a youngster. Impressive, I am truly impressed. Upon hearing the conversation of the duo, the other apothecaries couldn't help chuckling. It was common for men to bring in concubines into the household, but for him to bring in a concubine who hadn't reached 18 yet and work hard every day, both day and night. This apothecary Lin Mu had way too much drive. Upon hearing the laughter of his old buddies, Lin Mu felt embarrassed. Looking at Zhongxian, he said, there should be nothing wrong with that. It was perfectly normal for males and females to be in love with one another. It was a natural phenomenon of complementing the yang with yin. Furthermore, his cultivation had reached Pishua realm, so it wasn't a big deal for him to go at it several times in a single day. In fact, it wasn't a big deal for ordinary humans to go at it several times every day either. If that was all, there would be nothing wrong with the situation. However, in order to become more fiery, did you consume some medicine that you shouldn't have? Zhongxian asked. This. Gedeng. Lin Mu's heart skipped a beat. The other party was correct. Even though he possessed a high cultivation realm, he was still advanced in age, so his physiological functions weren't working as well as they had before. In order to take better care of his concubine, he consumed some medicine to boost his stamina and strength recently. If I'm not wrong, your concubine persuaded you to consume that medicine, right? Zhongxian continued. You're right. Lin Mu nodded his head. As an apothecary, he knew that all medicine was poisonous in a way or another, so he was reluctant to eat it. However, he was unable to stand his ground against the persuasion of his concubine. As such, he could only consume it. The medicine was provided by the other party, and after which he felt like a wolf, full of incomparable vitality. Furthermore, it left him excited for quite a period of time. Despite your correct forging method, sequence, and such, you are still unable to forge the meridian expansion pill. With both of his hands behind his back, Zhongxian circled around apothecary Lin Mu. Choosing not to pursue the matter about his concubine, he continued to talk about pill forging. Initially, I was unable to find the reason, and that left me puzzled for a moment. I even wondered if it could be a mistake with the cauldron when I suddenly recalled a certain line in a book. The book is known as Discussion on Pill Formation. It was written by a 3-star apothecary, Senior Mu Yang. The book is in the basic tier book collection vault, and written within are several hundred reasons why a pill might fail to form. Of which, there was a certain line, and quoting directly from it, upon losing one's breath, one's spirit would be incomplete. Even with perfect skills, it would be hard for the pill to form. The meaning is simple. It means that if one's essence is lacking, even if the forging technique and sequences are completely correct, it will be difficult for the pill to be successfully formed. This formation of pill here refers to meridian expansion pill. Upon thinking of these, I walked over to you and caught the scent of the fragrance of the body of a young lady en rouge. As a result, I asked you about your concubine. Actually, just by marrying a concubine and working day and night, you shouldn't have lost your essence to the point that the pill wouldn't form. The main problem here was that you have lost your core. Lost my core? Lin Mu was taken aback. That's right, humans have a core and losing it results in catastrophic effects. Given that you are an apothecary, you should have heard of it. If you have just worked day and night, given your strength as a fighter 6-dan Pishua realm, it wouldn't be anything much. You should recover fully by resting for half a day. However, you shouldn't have eaten the tonic she gave you. Those tonics were actually poison that stimulate your spirit, making you imagine hallucinations. It is true that it grants you overwhelming vitality and battle power in the short run, but the poison also flows about your entire body and damages your core. As time goes by, your body will gradually grow weaker and weaker. In the end, you will die. On the outside, it looks no different to the usual aging process, and even more accomplished apothecaries would find it hard to tell the difference. If I'm not wrong, if you were to continue consuming the pill like that, you would age swiftly and, within a single year, you will definitely die. Even deities would find it hard to save you then. Meridian expansion pill is a medicine that can widen a cultivator's meridians and can be considered to be a tonic. Losing your core, you are unable to focus your spirit, breath, and psyche, and as such, it is difficult for you to forge such a pill. Failing to forge the pill was very normal. At this point, Zhongxian paused for a moment. For this kind of medicine to even fool an apothecary like you, it must be incomparably precious. It would be hard to imagine that your concubine is unaware of the matter. That is why I said that she is not a thing. If I have offended you, I hope that you can forgive me. This. Lin Mu shuddered and he staggered backward. The words of the other party were completely rational, such that it felt like he had witnessed it all happening. It was true that he felt his battle power rising upon consuming the medicine by his concubine. In the past, he would feel his back aching right after a single go. Yet, after taking the medicine, 3 to 5 times was an easy feat for him. Initially, he thought that he was slowly growing stronger. Never would he have thought that he was being drugged. Damn it. That bitch, to think that I showered her with so much love. She actually tried to backstab me. Clenching his fist tightly, Lin Mu's eyes turned red. Alright, if Apothecary Lin thinks what I said is not true, there should be a way to verify what I just said. I have finished answering this question. Zhongxian gestured. What you said is completely true. I thank you for your guidance. I admit defeat for this pill debate. Without any hesitation, Apothecary Lin Mu admitted defeat. The other party's words were spot on and his analysis completely rational. Given how he was unable to find a single mistake in what he said, he had no choice but to admit defeat. Furthermore, it was true that his body condition had slowly been deteriorating recently. Initially, he thought that it was due to his age. To think that his concubine was the cause of it. Zhongxian simply smiled faintly, choosing not to interfere in Lin Mu's affairs. It was the other party's problem. He found it bothersome to get involved. Afterwards, he glanced at the 3 remaining apothecaries. You're the only ones left. Just ask any problems that you have all together. Of the 10 apothecaries at the start, 7 had already admitted defeat. As long as these 3 did so as well, he would pass the pill debate and become an official apothecary. Genius brother Zhongxian, if that's the case, I happen to have a question that I need to inquire of you. An apothecary stood up. Brother Lu, don't be too anxious. Going by seniority, I should be the one to go first. I happen to have thought of a question as well. Another apothecary stood up. Both of you, stop arguing. I should be the one to ask first. No matter what, I became an apothecary earlier than you two. The last elder also hurriedly stood up. Hey! Just a moment ago, they were still cowering in his presence. He had asked them to pose their questions many times previously just to receive a silent response. Yet now they were all vying to ask him questions. Zhongxian was bewildered. Did they take the wrong medicine today? Chapter 122. Pill debate ends. Not just Zhongxian, even Ouyang Cheng and the others were dumbfounded by their actions. The hell, can anyone tell me what is going on? Weren't they still behaving apprehensively a moment ago? Why are they vying to go first, as though seeing a beautiful lady and charging towards her? You all. Wen Shui was also completely baffled. I get it, this bunch of fellows, they really. Du Man shook his head with a wry smile on his face. Get what? Ouyang Cheng looked over. Previously, Zhongxian was able to point out their flaws through pill forging. It gave a feeling akin to being stripped naked in public. Under such circumstances, no one would be willing to pose questions. Apothecary Du Man said. But now, not only did he solve Apothecary Lin Mu's problem, he even pointed out a hidden threat for him. It is clear that this is an opportunity for them. Given that, who wouldn't get excited? That's true. Comprehending the situation now, Ouyang Cheng nodded his head. It is easier to know someone else than to know yourself. It was difficult to notice one's own flaws. With a single word from Zhongxian, they might be able to correct their flaws and induce a giant improvement in their pill forging skills. It's a pity. I was truly foolish then. I shouldn't have admitted defeat so early on. Otherwise, I could have brought up some doubts I have been harboring inside me for a long time. With a pained heart, Apothecary Du Man shook his head. How did he miss such a good opportunity just like that? Just let it go since you've already passed it by. You're at fault for not treasuring the opportunity anyway. On the other hand, I have been dedicated to my responsibilities, making my best to ensure this pill debate is impartial. As such, I didn't even get a chance to pose a question. Say, when this pill debate ends, will he give me a chance to ask a question or two? I also have quite a few questions. At this point, Ouyang Cheng's eyes shone brightly and excitement filled him. Apothecary Du Man had no words. Wen Shui didn't know what to say either. The hell? You are a 1-star intermediate stage apothecary, as well as the head of the Apothecary Guild. For you to brazenly say that you want to consult an apprentice. Dedicated to your responsibilities, you say? Why do I not see a single hint of what you just said? You've just been sitting idly by. All right, one at a time. Soon, Zhongxian understood what was going. Shaking his head helplessly, he casually pointed to an apothecary among them. You. Me. Great. Upon being chosen, he hurriedly stood up. I have a question that I would really like to ask. Recently, I've had insomnia and wake up 7 or 8 times every night. I also often get nightmares. Can you help me check if I have any illness, or if someone is scheming against me, or if there is a problem with my concubine? Zhongxian was speechless. So were the others. Cough cough. Apothecary Liu, we are in a pill debate, not a fortune-telling or patient treatment session. Pay attention to what you are saying. Ouyang Cheng couldn't help but intervene. But, that's my question. This is what I want to ask. Apothecary Liu said with a resolute expression. All right. How about this? You try forging a pill and I will try to see what I can through that. Zhongxian felt a splitting headache consuming him as he waved him away. All right. Apothecary Liu nodded his head in excitement before rushing over to start forging. How about you? What problems do you have? After settling the first fellow, Zhongxian's attention turned to another apothecary. My question is actually quite simple. It isn't as shameless as Apothecary Liu's. The apothecary spoke with a righteous tone. My daughter is getting married within these 2 days, and the one she is marrying is a man called Zhu Xian. He hails from foreign lands, and even though I have investigated his background for quite a while, I have not been able to get any useful information on him. Can you help me check if that lad is reliable or not? If he isn't, I will reject this marriage. At this point, he hesitated for a moment as he looked at Zhongxian questioningly. So, do I have to forge pills as well? Pu. Zhongxian almost threw up blood. Forge pills? Forge your head. What does your daughter getting married have to do with me or forging pills? I am just a person who is undergoing pill debate to become an apothecary. I am not here to divine your fate. Besides, even if I can divine fate, if you don't tell me the situation with your daughter, what can you forging pills do? Are you sure you aren't pulling my leg? Apothecary Qin, what the heck does your daughter getting married have to do with pill forging? Why are you asking Brother Zhong for that? What a joke. The final apothecary flung his hands and harumphed. But, this is the question I want to ask right now. Apothecary Qin was conflicted. You should at least ask something related to pill forging. You continue to think on that matter. I will go first. The last apothecary stepped forward toward Zhongxian before saying, Brother Zhongxian, seeing how young you are, you probably aren't married yet. I have a beautiful daughter who can serve as your concubine. Look, if not, my niece is also willing. If you think that I am taking advantage of you, I still have an elder sister and a younger sister. Zhongxian was lost for words. The hell? You are already 60 years old with half your foot in the grave. Your younger and elder sister, How unusual and hardcore a taste do I need for that? It took a long while before the chaos settled down and everyone got back to the main topic at hand. My question is this. The main ingredient of an antidote pill, poison-neutralizing grass, is too weak and it often burns to ashes before it can reach the bottom of the cauldron to mix with the other medicinal herbs. Where did I go wrong? Poison-neutralizing grass isn't resistant to high heat. This is something commonly agreed upon by everyone else. If you throw it directly into the cauldron, it is inevitable that it would burn up. However, you can soak it in purple sun water for 3 days before using it in your forging. Not only will it not burn up, its medicinal property will also be unleashed to the maximum. I would like to ask, why is it that I often find my breath getting irregular when I am forging pills? That is easy to answer. After getting back on track, the remaining part was simple. Most of the questions could be solved using the knowledge Zhongxian had gained from the basic Tierbook collection vault. If he really found himself at a loss, he would then proceed to get the other party to forge pills and utilize the Library of Heaven's Path to analyze the mistakes in his process. An hour later, he finally finished answering the questions of the 3 remaining apothecaries. Alright, now that all 10 apothecaries have admitted defeat, I hereby declare the winner of this pill debate as Zhongxian. From today onwards, he will be a new 1-star apothecary of the Apothecary Guild. When the pill debate came to an end, Ouyang Cheng announced the results and handed a 1-star badge and a robe over. This is the emblem of an apothecary. With this, no matter which apothecary guild you go to, you will enjoy special privileges when purchasing pills. Okay. Taking the 2 items from Ouyang Cheng's hands, he casually placed them into his storage ring. Everyone had guessed that there was some incredible figure guiding him from behind, so they weren't really surprised by that storage ring in his possession. Besides, being an apothecary was a lucrative occupation. The storage ring, which could cost millions, might be exorbitant, but it was nothing much to them. Guild leader Ouyang, where is the advanced Tierbook collection vault? I would like to take a look. Zhongxian asked. His main reason for undergoing the apothecary examination was to go to the book collection vault. Thus, the first thing he decided to do upon becoming an official apothecary was to head there to take a look. I'll take you there. After which, Ouyang Cheng first walked out of the room and Zhongxian followed closely behind him. Before he could travel far, the voice of the previous apothecary rang out behind him. Apothecary Zhongxian, do consider it for a bit. If my elder and younger sister won't do, I have an aunt too. She isn't married yet. Zhongxian staggered and tears streamed down his cheeks. Your aunt is old enough to be my great-grandmother. Chapter 123. Solution found. The Apothecary Guild's advanced Tierbook collection vault wasn't too far away from where they conducted the pill debate. It barely took a few steps before they arrived there. There are a total of 10 official apothecaries in the Tianxian Kingdom Apothecary Guild. Most of them only head here to pore through these books upon encountering truly difficult questions. As such, this place tends to be quite deserted. Anyways, feel free to pick out any book that you would like to read, Ouyang Cheng introduced, pushing open the doors. Zhongxian voiced his acknowledgement before heading into the room. Even though there weren't too many official apothecaries in Tianxian Kingdom's Apothecary Guild, the books inside were more than a few. It might be unable to compare to the hundreds of thousands of books in the basic Tierbook collection vault, but there was still more than 10,000 books inside. They were densely packed in a dozen or so bookshelves. Feel free to take a look. If there's anything you are unable to comprehend, you can ask me. I will be in that room, Ouyang Cheng casually pointed. Looks like I have troubled guild leader Ouyang. Zhongxian nodded his head with a smile. There is nothing troublesome about this. You are an official apothecary now, and I will likely have quite a few questions I will need to consult you on in the future. Ouyang Cheng chuckled and walked out of the vault. He knew that the other party had his own goals and secrets for coming to this book collection vault, so it's inappropriate for him to linger around here. I should start looking around. Upon his departure, Zhongxian cracked a grin. Walking over to the first rack, he started to flip through the books. He would have to spend a significant amount of time to find that specific book. Since he was bound to be delayed in any case, He might as well copy all of these books into the library of Heaven's Path. It would be more convenient to look through them in the future, and he could learn more on pill forging as well. Hualala. Hualala. The flipping of pages echoed in the advanced tierbook collection vault. After a period of time, Zhongxian stopped and his eyes gleamed. Indeed, the book I wanted to browse through is here. Diligence paid off. Eventually, he found the book regarding unique constitutions and the pills required to awaken them. Tianxian Year 373, Emperor Shenling's daughter, Princess Shenqiu, had pure yin body. She managed to awaken it upon consuming a grade 3 pill. Unravel yin pill? Zhongxian's eyes lit up. He continued to browse through it. Tianxian Year 126, there was an individual who had emperor bloodline. He was unable to awaken it using pills. He eventually awakened it by smearing the blood of the colossal rhinoceros beast on his body. However, the probability of success is extremely low. In another book, he found the method to awaken the emperor bloodline. I need to see whether it's right or wrong. He copied the 2 lines onto a piece of paper, and with a jolt of his mind, the contents and flaws of the paper he just copied appeared in the library of Heaven's Path. Pure yin body can be awakened using the Unravel Yin pill. Flaws: it can only awaken around 10% of the constitution, thus it is incapable of unleashing the full strength of the constitution. Emperor bloodline can be awakened using the blood of the colossal rhinoceros beast. Flaws: it can only awaken around 10% of the constitution, thus it is incapable. Upon seeing the flaws written in the library, Zhongxian was taken aback. Only 10%. Previously, he thought that he would be able to fully awaken their constitution through the use of pills. He didn't think that it could only awaken 10%. However, 10% is sufficient. Zhongxian smiled. Unique constitutions were extremely powerful. Even if it was just awakened by 10%, it was enough to increase one's cultivation by leaps and bounds. It was more than sufficient for a mere freshman tournament. Now, I have to look for a grade 3 Unravel Yin pill and the blood of the colossal rhinoceros beast. Upon confirming what he needed, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. He finished flipping through all the books before walking over to Ouyang Cheng's room. He was the head of the Apothecary Guild. Most probably, he was the only one who could obtain these 2 items for him. After flipping through the books in the Apothecary Guild's advanced tierbook collection vault, Zhongxian had a rough idea on what Wang Ying and Liu Yang required, and he could buy it along with the other things. Apothecary Zhongxian. Upon seeing Zhongxian walk over, Ouyang Cheng hurriedly stood up. Guild leader Ouyang, there is something I need to trouble you for. Zhongxian cut to the chase and spoke of his purpose here. I would like to purchase a few items and I may require your assistance. Oh, what do you need? It shouldn't be a problem as long as it is something the guild has. Ouyang Cheng nodded his head. I need an Unravel Yin pill, a Meridian Rejuvenation pill, a portion of colossal rhinoceros blood, and a portion of body nourishment medicinal solution, Zhongxian said. Meridian Rejuvenation pill was for Liu Yang's consumption. After practicing a battle technique beyond his cultivation realm, the meridians in his right arm had withered and required the Meridian Rejuvenation pill to heal it. On the other hand, the body nourishment medicinal solution was for Wang Ying. Her legs had yet to fully recover top form and she was still unable to fight like a normal cultivator. As such, she required the nourishment of this kind of medicinal solution to hasten her recovery. It should be easy to obtain Meridian Rejuvenation pill and body nourishment medicinal solution, and I can help you look for it. However, the Unravel Yin pill and the blood of the colossal rhinoceros beast. This is slightly trickier. Ouyang Cheng didn't expect that he would require so many things and a deep frown appeared on his face. Trickier? Is it possible to obtain it? Zhongxian looked at him. After going through so much trouble to look for the solution to unlocking his student's constitution, he would truly be infuriated if he was unable to obtain the items required for them at this point. We don't have these items in our guild. However, if I send in an application to headquarters, it should be possible to obtain them, Ouyang Cheng said. That's great. Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. However, Ouyang Cheng frowned once more. The headquarters are simply too far away. Even if they got another branch from the other, closer kingdoms to send it, it would still take a minimum of 10 days. 10 days. Zhong Xian was surprised for a moment. Then, he recovered and continued, "That's fine by me too. If it has to take 10 days, then so be it." There were still 14 days until the freshman tournament. Things might get a little pressing if it arrived 10 days later, but he should still be able to finish his preparations in time. "All right, I will send in the application to headquarters now then. You can obtain it within 10 days. As for the Meridian Rejuvenation Pill and Body Nourishment Medicinal Solution, I can get them for you right now." Guild leader Ouyang smiled. "Okay, I will be inconveniencing you then." Zhong Xian nodded his head. "How much do the 4 of them cost? Do I pay for all of them now or do I pay when they are all here?" After inheriting Yang Mo's fortune, he had more than 1,000,000 gold coins in his possession. He could be considered a wealthy man in the capital now. Purchasing a few medicinal herbs to raise his students' fighting prowess didn't matter much to him. At the same time, he could also show how noble he was as a teacher. It's just a small sum of money. Am I a stingy person? Meridian Rejuvenation Pill and Body Nourishment Medicinal Fluid aren't too expensive. Totaling both of them up, it is around 400,000 gold coins. Ouyang Cheng calculated for a moment before continuing. The Unravel Yin Pill and Colossal Rhinoceros Blood would be slightly more expensive. The former is one of the more advanced Grade 3 pills, whereas the Colossal Rhinoceros Beast is a primordial beast, a whole level higher than that of Savage Beast. Right now, you are an apothecary, so you are entitled to special privileges. I can sell them to you at a discount. The Unravel Yin Pill will cost around 20 million gold coins, whereas the blood of the Colossal Rhinoceros Beast will cost 3 million. How about this? I will lower the price down for you. 23 million will suffice. Ouyang Yang calculated for a moment before saying. Upon noticing the abrupt silence in the atmosphere, he lifted his head to take a look. Unknowingly, Zhong Xian was already 10 meters away from him. Waving his hands constantly, he said, "I'm just casually asking about those things, don't take it as real." Ouyang Cheng couldn't even choke out a response. Chapter 124. Thinking of a solution. Zhong Xian was on the verge of tears. He thought that these things would cost a maximum of a few 100,000 gold coins. With that fortune of 1,000,000 gold coin that he possessed, spending a little slight amount more didn't mean much. Anyway, he didn't really work for the money. Yet, never in his dreams did he expect that the cost would total more than 20 million. He prided himself on his wealth, but before such an outstanding sum, he wouldn't have enough money even if his wealth multiplied several-fold. What kind of damned situation was this? Initially, he was determined to awaken their bloodlines to make up for their weaknesses, thus causing their fighting prowess to soar. They would be able to astonish everyone with their strength at the freshman tournament, and at the same time, Zhong Xian would gain the image of an expert who cared not for money. Yet, never in his dreams did he expect that he would have to spend so much. This was too much. If he knew that he would need that much money earlier, he wouldn't have tried to act cool from the start. Why don't I just forget it? Suppressing his bleeding heart, Zhong Xian was conflicted. He was far from the required sum, so he definitely couldn't buy these items. Yet, all of the effort he had put into this, taking the apprentice apothecary and full apothecary examination, was for these items. Could he allow it all to end in vain? Accomplishing nothing at all in the end? Furthermore, he had already bragged about it. Zhao Ya and the others knew that he was trying to look for ways to awaken their constitution. If he were to return empty-handed, how could he lift his head in front of them in the future? No, giving up just because it's too expensive isn't my way of doing things. If he truly gave up on these items, Zhao Ya and the others wouldn't be able to awaken their constitutions, and it would merely be a dream to triumph over Lu Xun 14 days later. A transcender should not give up before even trying. Furthermore, as Zhao Ya and the others' teacher, the one to point out their path for them, his sense of responsibility would not allow him to simply sit idly by. Even though he had just become a teacher, he had chosen to take on the responsibilities that a teacher ought to shoulder. If he didn't have enough money, he could just look for ways to earn more. At this point, Zhong Xian walked back up to him. Looking at Ouyang Cheng, he asked, cough cough, guild leader Ouyang. Is it possible for me to put those items on my tab first? I will find ways to repay this debt to you in the future. It can't be done. Guild leader Ouyang shook his head. None of those in our branch can forge grade 3 pilsel, so we need to purchase it from the headquarters. As a result, I can't delay the payment for you. But, 20 million, I won't be able to take it out within a short period of time. Zhong Xian shook his head. There's no way around it. How about, you try to learn how to forge pills first? Given your knowledge in the field, there should be a lot of ways for you to earn money, Ouyang Cheng advised. The young man before him had knowledge that surpassed that of all of the apothecaries in the entire branch. If he were to forge pills personally, even though 20 million might sound fearsome, for a high-level apothecary, it truly wasn't a huge sum. One can earn a lot of money from forging pills. That meridian soothing pill that you all forged previously, how much could one be sold for? Zhong Xian couldn't help asking. The meridian soothing pill isn't easy to forge. And as such, it's one of the more profitable pills among grade 1 pills. A single pill should be able to sell for 50,000 or so. If you forge 10 in a day, you will earn 20 million in less than 2 months. Guild leader Ouyang asserted. Apothecary was an extremely lucrative profession. However, it depended highly on the market conditions and whether the supply of medicinal herb could keep up with production. Even though it was possible theoretically, even official apothecaries would find it difficult to forge pills every single day. 2 months. Despair streaked across Zhong Xian's face. In 2 months' time, the freshman tournament would have concluded and everything would be over. If that's the case, he might as well work on their strength the conventional way. There was no point in him exerting so much effort here. Besides, the reason why his theoretical ability was that impressive was because of the Library of Heaven's Path. If he were to forge pills personally, it wasn't a feasible plan. Even though every single word of his was profound and logical, if he were to do it personally, he couldn't even complete the very first step of extracting essence from the medicinal herbs. He had seen the others forging pills previously, and without several dozen years of training and refining his skill, it was impossible for him to get to their level of expertise. Is there any other better way of earning money? He couldn't help but ask for an alternative method. Better way of earning money? Guild leader Ouyang shook his head. Just when he was about to shoot down the possibility, a thought popped into his mind. The most lucrative occupation in this world is, without a doubt, master teacher. They can earn a hefty fee just by offering some guidance to others. Apothecaries aren't that bad either, but when compared to master teachers, there is still a huge gap between the two. There were many occupations in the job. Appraisers and apothecaries could be considered as some of the more lucrative ones, but they still paled in comparison to master teachers. Cultivators often find themselves reaching a bottleneck in their cultivation, unable to break through even till their last breath. However, a single pointer by a master teacher could possibly be the key for them to reach higher realms. With a rise in the cultivation realm, not only would their lifespan increase, their ability to earn money also quickened. As such, most people were willing to dump all of their fortune just for a single pointer from a master teacher. Indubitably, master teacher was the most lucrative job in the world, unmatched by any other occupation. However, it wasn't easy for one to become a master teacher. One had to have students of their own, teaching experience, reputation, and on top of that, one had to go through numerous trials as well. For example, Zhong Xian with his Library of Heaven's Path was able to easily solve many problems. However, without students of his own, he couldn't take the master teacher examination. Can you pay in my stead first? I will search for a way to pay you within 10 days. As Zhong Xian said this, a bold idea emerged in his mind. All right. Ouyang Cheng was oblivious to his thoughts. However, seeing the grim look on his face, he didn't seem as though he was joking. So he nodded his head. I will be leaving first. After which, Zhong Xian walked out. Since master teachers were good at earning money, if I pretend I am a master teacher, would I be able to earn money swiftly? At this point, Zhong Xian started to analyze the pros and cons of the bold thought he just had. Using ordinary methods, It was impossible to earn 20 million gold coins in 10 days unless one robbed a bank. However, if he pretended to be a master teacher, there might be a possibility of him earning the sum within the duration. If someone tried to sew and were exposed, it was highly likely for that person to be beaten to death on the spot. After all, a master teacher possessed vast knowledge, and it would be easy to give himself away, especially when he said something flawed. However, Zhong Xian was different. With the Library of Heaven's Path and his ability to hoodwink others he gained in his previous life, it was truly a simple feat to scam others. Of course, it wasn't really considered as a scam. After all, with the Library of Heaven's Path and his Heaven's Path divine art, he could see the flaws in others. Raising their cultivation realm would be something easy and pleasant. All right, I shall do it that way. After analyzing the situation, he felt that he could do it and nodded his head in satisfaction. If he wanted to help Zhao Ya and the others to grow stronger and win the bet he had with Lu Zun, those few items were a must. As such, he had to earn that sum of money. This was the only way to earn 20 million within 10 days. I have to prepare some things in advance. Given my current age, no one will believe me if I go around shouting that I'm a master teacher. I need to disguise myself. At the very least, I should look 30. Master teachers were just like apothecaries. If you said you were a master teacher when you didn't even look 20, you would probably drown in the other party's spit before you could even finish your words. No matter what, he had to disguise himself and alter his facial features. Otherwise, putting aside the fact that it would be difficult for him to induce trust in others, this might also bring him endless trouble in the future. Next, as a master teacher, I would need uphold my own identity and reputation. I can't possibly run to the house of others and offer to give them guidance. If so, they would just think of me as a scammer. He lived in the information age previously, and even though he had not done such things in the past, he knew a thing or two about it from the news. Given the esteemed position master teachers had in this world, it wasn't practical for him to run to other people's house to offer them pointers and demand money from them in return. What should I do? Since he couldn't run to others to offer his services, how could he look for clients? Without clients, how could he make money? Zhong Xian frowned. Chapter 125. Renting a mansion. Right, I should first look for a residence. As long as I can build a reputation, people would definitely come scrambling to me. This way, I can avoid knocking on the doors and retain my dignity as an expert, while earning money. An idea popped into his head. As a master teacher, one had to uphold his stature. He couldn't simply go around visiting houses. As such, he could only lie in wait for willing praise to take the bait. As long as someone were to come knocking, he was confident of subduing them with his hoodwinking prowess and Library of Heaven's Path. Yup, I should first look for a base of operation. After contemplating carefully, he realized that this was indeed the best way to go about it. With a snap of his fingers, Zhong Xian made up his mind. He would do it this way. With a concrete idea in his mind, he didn't dawdle and immediately proceeded to the reception to purchase pills and medicinal solutions that could change one's outer appearance and skin color. Even though he didn't really know disguise techniques, as a member of modern civilization, he still had some basic knowledge regarding makeup. Using those pills and medicinal solution, it didn't take long for him to transform from a young lad below 20 years old into a yellowish, middle-aged man that possessed a dignified gaze. After staring into the mirror for a long period of time, he ascertained that there were no problems with his disguise and nodded his head in satisfaction. After which, he walked out of the apothecary guild. In order to convince others, I need to be dressed in luxurious clothes. Clothes make the man. Given his current dress-up, many would believe him if he claimed to be a beggar. He needed to look the image if he wanted people to believe that he was a master teacher. There is a clothing store right ahead. With such a thought in his mind, he noticed a clothing store that was nearby and entered. When he finally exited, he had already transformed into a totally different person. With a brocade hat and marten coat, he was dressed extravagantly. It was clear from his appearance that he was a person of noble standing. These clothes cost him a total of 20,000 gold coins. He could feel his heart bleeding. I should just treat it as an investment. Consoling himself, he walked along the street. An hour later, he arrived at Tianyu Commercial City once more. It was already late in the afternoon and the sun was about to set. Knowing that he was lacking time, Zhongxian proceeded forward in large strides. He knew that it was impossible to find accommodation in a short period of time single-handedly. However, Tianyu Commercial City was reputed for selling everything possible under the sun. Thus, it was guaranteed that there was information on this aspect available as well. Furthermore, he didn't need to purchase an accommodation, it was sufficient for him to just rent one. As he had already been here before, he had become quite familiar with the surroundings. After strolling around, he soon caught sight of a realtor agent center. "Old master, are you here to buy a house?" Upon noticing his entry, a plump boss stepped forward immediately to welcome him. "Old master?" Zhongxian was taken aback for a moment before coming to a realization. He had already modified his appearance at current, he looked like he was in his 40s. He was no longer a young lad. Thus, he nodded his head and placed both hands behind his back, assuming a disposition befitting that of an old master. He deepened his voice, making him seem more mature. "I want to rent a mansion." "Mansion?" "Old master, your decision to visit us to rent a mansion is a wise one." The boss's eyes gleamed. Those who were able to rent out mansions were all wealthy men. Just by raising the rent by a slight amount, these landlords would be able to earn a huge sum. "Old master, may I know what your requirements?" As though he saw a fat lamb before him that was waiting to be butchered, the boss asked excitedly. "It must be clean, large and has the best location. It would be perfect if the renovations are in place so that I can move in immediately," Zhongxian said. This. Upon hearing the other party's request, the eyes of the boss twinkled and he almost leaped in joy. No doubt about it, this was a huge lamb for him. Putting aside all other factors, just the requirements Zhongxian stated had made it impossible for the mansion to be inexpensive. How could someone who wanted to rent a mansion like that be poor? He was so happy that he almost squealed, but he acted as though he was troubled. "Old master, we do have such mansions, but the cost of the rent would be slightly pricey." By saying so first, the plump man would be able to demand a higher price later on. Hee. Price isn't a problem. Zhongxian gestured haughtily. Right now, he was a master teacher. It would truly be embarrassing if he were to squabble over the measly sum of money. "All right then, I will bring old master to look at mansions until you find one that is to your liking." Upon hearing such impressive words from the other party, the bosses smiled so wide that it was about to reach his ears. Without any hesitation, he closed the shop and led the way, holding a bunch of keys. Zhongxian followed behind him. Soon, they arrived at a vast mansion. This is a mansion a rich businessman bought last year. However, he died last year and his son indulged in prostitutes and gambling. As a result, he had no choice but to put this mansion up for sale or rent. This mansion is newly renovated and its location is good as well. "Do you want to take a look?" Stopping before the mansion, the boss looked at Zhongxian to gauge his reaction. This mansion was the largest and most luxurious one of their realtor center. Regardless of whether it was the location or the size, there was nothing one could find faults with. Thus, he brought the other party here at first time's notice for him to take a look. He would only bring him to the other mansions if it was unsuitable. If the other party were to lay his sights upon this one, he would have truly struck it rich. "Let's enter to take a look." Zhongxian didn't say anything excessive. Since he wanted to impersonate a master teacher, his residence had to have class. It mustn't be too small. As for the money Zhongxian had to spend, it wasn't really a problem. "Great." Upon observing how the other party didn't decline, the boss smiled and hurriedly opened the doors. It was a Wujin courtyard. There were man-made mountains and ponds. Not only was it large and spacious, there were all kinds of plants planted around the entire mansion. Upon entering, one would be surrounded by greenery and the fragrance of flowers, inducing a feeling of ease. Not bad. After taking a look, Zhongxian nodded his head secretly. This mansion was exactly as he imagined. He could simply take his baggage and move in at this very moment. Everything he needed was present and he didn't have to go the extra mile to prepare anything. Furthermore, It was close to Hongtian Academy, just a 10-minute walk away. After his lessons, he could head straight back here, not having to spend much time traveling to and fro. This will do. How much is the rent? Fancying the residence, Zhongxian gestured majestically and got straight to the point. This is the most luxurious mansion in our realtor center. If old master wishes to rent it, it would be 150,000 gold coins every month. The boss hurriedly said. 150,000? Zhongxian frowned. He wasn't sure about the property market in this world, but 150,000 a month to rent a mansion seemed way too expensive. Who? Without saying anything, Zhongxian suddenly clawed at the boss before him. Old master, what do you intend to do? Hearing the sound of his fingernails tearing through air, the boss was terrified and cowered backward immediately. With just a movement, his level of cultivation was revealed, Fighter 3 Dan Junchi Pinnacle. His cultivation realm wasn't high. Oh, I just want to see your level of cultivation. Zhongxian retracted his palm and placed behind his back. Then, looking at the other party again, his eyes narrowed. You said that you will rent this mansion to me at 150,000 a month. Tripling the rent of 50,000 a month. Do you take me for a fool? Wujin Courtyard. To understand what a Wujin Courtyard is, one must know what a Seheyuan, also known as courtyard houses, are. The most typical example of it were the houses of generals' officials in the ancient past. There would be a courtyard in the middle and rooms of various purposes surrounding it. Seheyuans can be split into various categories depending on its size. The smallest is the Yijin Courtyard, 1-entrance courtyard. Wujin Courtyard, 5-entrance courtyard, was considered as the largest. Upon stepping into the house, there would be a narrow walkway, first entrance, accommodations for guests, second entrance, a living room, third entrance, main accommodations for the family, fourth entrance, and accommodations for daughters' female servants, fifth entrance. Since there was like a courtyard between each of these places, it is called 5-entrance courtyard. This layout isn't fixed but is typical. Chapter 126. I am a master teacher. Upon hearing those words, the boss's expression changed. He let out a laughter and replied immediately, Old master, what are you talking about? This is a Wujin Courtyard mansion and has such a prime location. 150,000 a month is truly not expensive. Inexpensive? The corners of Zhongxian's lips crept upward. The original owner of the mansion is called Du Qiao and he is indeed a merchant. However, he isn't dead yet. Due to encountering bandits, a huge blow was dealt to his business and thus, he decided to sell this mansion. However, he was unable to find a buyer so he decided to lease it out instead. According to your agreement with him, it should be 50,000 every month and you will be entitled to a 15% commission. Yet, you are offering me 150,000 now. Isn't your appetite a little too big? Old master, you. Upon hearing his words, the boss staggered backward. Are you for real? The contract on this house signed between Du Qiao and him was exactly as Zhongxian said, 50,000 a month, just that. This was supposed to be confidential. They didn't tell any outsiders when signing the contract, so how could this fellow be aware? Why? Do you wish to deny it? Zhongxian stared at him calmly. The contract was signed 3 months ago at Emerald Pavilion, and the one who accompanied by your side then was the top hostess, Kui Ling. The wine you two drank was the Crushing Waves with 8 years of maturity and the dish you two ate was the Ruby Rabbit meat. During which, you even had Ming Xin you play a tune. After sealing the deal, both of you happily invited 3 ladies in. Do you need me to recount the events that occurred one by one for you? Ah. The boss looked as though he had seen a ghost and fear surged through him. The words that the other party said were spot on, as though the man was there in person. This is too terrifying. You. Who exactly are you? Frightened, the boss trembled. Standing before the other party, he felt as though he had been stripped naked, causing him to feel guilty subconsciously. I am merely a person who wants to rent a place, I just don't wish to be taken advantage of. Zhongxian's expression was serene. I was overly obsessed with profits. This mansion is exactly as what old master said, it costs 50,000 every month. After the other party revealed so many things about him, the boss was truly frightened. He dared not to fool around and hurriedly admitted his fault. UN. Watching the other party concede, Zhongxian nodded his head in satisfaction. He casually whipped out a stack of bills. Here is 100,000, I will be renting the place for a month. For the excess amount, help me to get some servants. Also, during the time I am here, you shall be my butler. No need to speak of 50,000 or 100,000, if you perform well, I will give you however much money you need. You will definitely make more money than running that realtor center of yours. As a master teacher, he couldn't possibly clean such a large mansion personally or do everything by himself. It was necessary to have servants and maids to assist with the chores. The reason why he wanted this fellow to serve as his butler was even simpler. He was good at scamming. To outright offer 3 times the original price, he had the enormous guts. His reason for impersonating a master teacher was to make quick bucks, and he desperately required such talents. I will get how much I want. The boss's breathing hastened. His realtor center only earned him 20,000 gold coins or so a year. It was not often that people would come to rent mansions like this, and moreover, it was useless if the other party failed to fall for his exorbitant scams. This is precisely why he felt a surge of excitement upon seeing the bills worth 100,000 gold coins and hearing the other party's offer. The heck! I knew that he was a fat lamb, but I didn't expect for him to be such a massive one. Why? Are you unwilling? No, I am willing. The boss grabbed the bills from Zhongxian's hands hurriedly. His movement was even faster than when he dodged Zhongxian's attack earlier. How could he be unwilling when such a good opportunity was presented in his face? UN. I will only be staying in Tianxian City for a period of time. If you serve me well, I will make you sure you earn 10 years' worth of salary within a single month. As for what you should do, I think you should know it better than anyone else. The other party's response did not let him down. Zhongxian nodded his head in satisfaction. Rest assured, old master. I will definitely serve you well. Upon hearing the other party's promise, the plump boss nodded his head vehemently. UN, Zhongxian responded. It was of utmost importance to balance the carrot and the stick to keep a person loyal. At the very beginning, he exposed all of the other party's secrets, inducing fear in the other party's heart. After which, he offered him massive benefits. It would be queer if the other party was instead unwilling to give in to him. What is your name? Your humble servant's name is Sun Qiong. The boss quickly replied. You can call me Xiao Qiong. Xiao Qiong. A strange expression appeared on Zhongxian's face. Yes. Sun Qiong nodded his head. There are some tasks that I will delegate to you right now. Suppressing the urge to call the other party cockroach, Zhongxian waved his thoughts away and said, Firstly, I want you to find maids and servants for this mansion by tonight. Tomorrow, when I come over, I want to see them here. Secondly, through your connections, I want you to spread the news of me living in this mansion. Say that a passing master teacher, Yang Xian, will be staying here for a short period of time. The more people know of the matter, the better it is. Naturally, he wouldn't use his real name. Yang Xian was a web name that he used in his previous life, thus he casually chose to use it. Master teacher. Taken aback, Sun Qiong lifted his head and stared at the old master doubtfully. UN, I am a master teacher. I am here to look for something. So, it would be best if you could get the news as far as possible. Zhongxian harumphed. Of the 100,000 I have just given you, there should be a remaining sum after hiring the servants. Do a good job, and I will make sure to reward you greatly. I have taken a look at your cultivation realm and I have noticed that you have been stuck at Zhenqi Realm Pinnacle for over a decade now. It would be a small matter for me to help you break through during the time I am in Tianxian Royal City. Thank you, old master. Sun Qiong quickly kneeled to the floor. It was just as the other party said. He had been stuck at Zhenqi Realm Pinnacle for over a decade, but somehow, he was unable to overcome this boundary. If he were to receive the pointer of a master teacher, Fighter 4 Dan wouldn't be a dream for him. He secretly lifted his head to sneak a peek. The old master whom he had just met with had his hands behind his back as he stood before the background of the setting sun. The faint yellow light that scattered on his body made him resemble an unworldly immortal. Upon this sight, admiration arose instantaneously from the depths of his heart for this old master. At this moment, he was completely convinced that the other party was a master teacher. If he weren't a master teacher, how could he have known about his secret dealings? If he weren't a master teacher, how could he possibly be so rich and generous? However, what that truly convinced the boss were his disposition and his actions. Majesty exuded naturally in every single action of his. In fact, if someone were to claim that the person before him wasn't a master teacher, he would think that the person was lying. Old master, rest assured. I will accomplish this matter perfectly. Sun Qiong was filled with motivation. Master teachers. This is the noblest group of people in the world. Even the emperor of Tianqian Kingdom, Shenzui, has to act respectfully and politely around them. For an ordinary and insignificant figure like him to be able to serve such an incredible figure, it was almost as though the goddess of fortune had blessed him. Go. Upon observing the other party's complete submission, Zhongxian gestured for him to leave. Yes. Sun Qiong left excitedly. Only after his departure did Zhongxian relax his body and stretch his back. He sighed. To think that acting like an expert would be so tiring. Xiao Qiong is another word for cockroach. Chapter 127, List of opponents. If someone were to know of Zhongxian's thoughts, he would probably be tempted to strangle him. You impersonate an expert and find it tiring? Why don't you kill yourself? After Sun Qiong's departure, Zhongxian didn't remain in the mansion for long. By the time he returned to his dormitory, the sun had already set. Today's morning lessons, the pill debate, and then looking for a base and acting like an expert. He felt exhausted after going through so much today. Initially, he had planned to research content on the next phase after Pishua Realm, but unknowingly, he fell asleep right after lying onto his bed. By the time he woke up, it was already morning. Upon entering the classroom, he realized that his students were already present. He took a look at each of their conditions and nodded his head in satisfaction. These students seemed to also know the importance of the freshman tournament, and thus, they were extremely diligent in their training. Even though it was just a single day, they had made significant improvements. After offering them pointers individually, Zhongxian clarified some doubts they had. Then, just as he was about to end the lesson, he saw a person walking in through the door. Zhong Laosha, Luzun Laosha challenged you to a teacher evaluation, and this is the name list of students who would be competing with yours. When Zhu Hong delivered the war declaration previously, he was beaten to a pulp by Yuan Dao and the others. The one who came this time is a teacher. Different teachers had different number of students under them. For star teachers like Lu Zun, his students often numbered in the hundreds, and if all of them were to be involved in the duel with Zhongxian, it wouldn't be fair. Thus, in the teacher evaluation, both teachers would choose a few students to represent them in duels. Zhongxian had a total of 5 students, so there was no need for him to choose among them. It would do as long as the other party chose 5 students to compete with each of his students. Good. Taking over the name list, Zhongxian took a look and a bizarre expression appeared on his face immediately. He thought that the other party would choose some of his more highly ranked students, given the number of outstanding students under his tutelage. He didn't expect that the 5 students he chose would have similar rankings to his own students, with the exception of Yuan Dao. The main reason for that was because the other party didn't have students of Yuan Dao's ranking. The first one on the list is Zhu Hong, who barged into the classroom previously, and the other candidates he chose corresponded to Wang Ying, Zheng Yang, and Liu Yang's rankings, so there aren't huge differences between them. In teacher evaluations, the challenged teacher had the choice of whether to accept or to decline. Once the challenged teacher accepts the challenge, the other party could choose any of the students under his tutelage to compete with him. Theoretically speaking, Lu Zun could send 5 of the top 10 students in the entrance examinations and it wouldn't be flouting the rules. As such, Zhongxian had been preparing for such a scenario. He hadn't expected that the other party would send him such a lineup, so he was a little taken aback. Yuan. Mo Xiao, isn't this fellow? Taking a closer look, A familiar name appeared. Perplexed by the matter, he suddenly heard Liu Yang's voice. Liu Yang had also seen the contents in the name list and felt that something was amiss. Zhong Laosha, even though the ranks of our opponents in the list are similar to ours, we won't be a match if we were to cross blows. There is something weird. Yuan. Zhong Xian looked over at him. What can you tell from it? For example, take a look at this Bai Chao. My ranking in the entrance examination is 93rd, whereas he is 90th. There isn't a large difference in our ranking, but this fellow is skilled in punching techniques and his cultivation realm is one small level higher than mine. If we were to talk about fighting prowess, two of me wouldn't be an opponent for him. The reason why our rankings are around the same was because he fared too badly for the theoretical examination. Liu Yang pointed to another name, this Du Lei as well. He is skilled in movement techniques. Wang Ying is ranked 67th while he is ranked 69th. It might seem as though he is slightly weaker than Wang Ying, but he possesses incredible speed. His attacks are also vicious and precise. In a one-to-one duel, Wang Ying definitely isn't a match for him. It's true that I am unable to defeat him. Wang Ying's face flushed red and she nodded her head in agreement. Mo Xiao is my friend and I have never defeated him. Zheng Yang started speaking. Just that. Wasn't Mo Xiao admitted under Wang Chao Laosha? We signed up for his lessons together but I failed the examination. Not just him, I remember clearly that Bai Chao was under Hongzun Laosha and this Du Lei was under Zhu Hong Laosha. Liu Yang said. What's going on? Zhong Xian stared intently at the teacher who passed him the name list. Oh, Mo Xiao, Bai Chao and Du Lei withdrew from their teacher's tutelage yesterday and acknowledged Lu Laosha. The teacher nodded his head. I have already sent you the name list and my job is done. Farewell. At this point, the teacher turned around to leave. Acknowledged Lu Laosha? Upon hearing these words, Zhong Xian immediately understood what was going on. This Lu Zun is truly a bastard. He thought that the other party sending students of similar ranking was an attempt to make this challenge fair. In reality, he had already done his research and analyzed his students thoroughly. Zhu Hong was ranked 4th while Zhao Ya was ranked 7th. There isn't a huge difference in their rankings, but when it comes to fighting, as seen before, if it weren't for Zhong Xian secretly informing her of his Ming men, even two Zhao Yas wouldn't be a match for him. The other party must have already known about Wang Ying's injury to send Du Lei, who is skilled in movement techniques and possesses superior speed. From the very start, Wang Ying's legs are already her weakness, so how could she keep up with someone with such outstanding speed? Isn't this just becoming a standing punch bag for the other party? Zheng Yang's spear mastery might be excellent, but the other party sent Mo Xiao, who is a level higher than him. Liu Yang injured the meridians in his right arms due to training in battle techniques beyond his level, but the other party sent Bai Chao, who is skilled in punching techniques. As for the one who corresponded to Yuan Dao, his name is Kong Jie and he is ranked in the 300s. However, after Liu Yang's brief introduction, Zhong Xian came to a realization immediately. This fellow isn't adept at battle techniques or anything else, but he possesses exceptional offensive ability and was an aggressive fighter. It was ideal to send a person like this to deal with Yuan Dao, who specializes in defense. The heck? In the view of those unaware of the situation, Lu Zun's action of not choosing among his outstanding students and instead picking those who hold rankings similar to his own was for fairness. But he was actually choosing opponents that curbed his students. For this, he even took students from other teachers to place them under his tutelage. If Zhong Xian were to train his students in the conventional method, his students would improve, but so would the other parties. To triumph over the other party with half a month of effort is nearly impossible. After all, his 5 students have problems of their own and those problems aren't minor things that can be solved swiftly. That bastard, he is trying to use me as a stepping stone. Zhong Xian's rage flurried. When the other party tried to trample on his dignity previously, he was furious but not to such an extent. After all, as a member of the modern civilization in his previous life, on which days did he not get his face slapped? He was already used to it. But now, the other party is trying to step on his face to reach higher grounds. He wants to attract more attention so as to add to his reputation. Zhongxian will not allow this to happen. I am not a staircase for you to step on as you please. Neither am I a melon for you to chew off as you please. I will go all out. Within 10 days, I will definitely earn 20 million and obtain the pills and medicinal solutions for them. Zhongxian clenched his fist tightly. It was his first time getting so furious after transcending over. Slapping my face. I can still endure it. But to step on my face to reach higher grounds? Dream on. In the past, he thought that he was on the losing end spending so much money to buy those items for his students. In his mind, no matter what, he had to get the money back from his students. However, from the look of it now, it wasn't his loss. This isn't just for his students, this is for him as well. Luzun, just you wait. You might be gleeful now, but you will be in for a rain of tears later on. In another classroom, Luzun sneezed. He rubbed his nose as he muttered, "Is someone thinking of me?" Chapter 128. No one is coming after instructing them to cultivate their personalized cultivation techniques properly and informing them he might be out for a few days. Zhongxian left the academy. He found a remote alley, and when he emerged on the streets once more, he had already transformed into master teacher Yang Xian. There were still 14 days before the start of the freshman tournament and he has to make every second count. In just a moment's time, he was already approaching the mansion. Before walking up, he could already see 2 guards standing gallantly by the door. Their strength had already reached Fighter 4 Dan Pigu realm. Not bad, looks impressive. The 2 guards were dressed in uniform. It didn't look extravagant but had a unique style, giving the impression that they were guards of a powerful clan. To be able to hire guards and prepare everything else within such a short period of time, it looks like that Xiao Qiong's ability to complete tasks was not bad. Old Master. Upon seeing him walk over, the 2 guards hesitated for a moment before shouting out in unison. UN. Zhongxian nodded his head in satisfaction. Looks like the butler Xiao Qiong had already informed them of his appearance and dressing. Otherwise, it should have been impossible for them to recognize him in one glance. This way, he managed to avoid the awkward situation of being unable to enter one's own home. Upon entering the residence, he realized that the interior was tidied spick and span. The surroundings were filled with flower pots and upon stepping in, fragrance surrounded him. Old Master, Old Master. The guards and maids drew closer and paid their respects to Zhongxian. Zhongxian nodded his head in satisfaction and he walked majestically toward the lounge. Old Master, following your orders, I have already recruited the necessary personnel. There is a total of 30 maids and 5 guards. Even before reaching the lounge, Sun Qiong ran up to welcome him. The glee of one who had successfully completed the missions delegated to him could be seen on his face. He was probably the only person who could gather so many people of quality within this short period of time. Not bad. Zhongxian complimented. Have you spread the news that I asked you to yesterday? Rest easy, Old Master. I have already spread the word. It won't take long before everyone in Tianxian Royal Kingdom will know that I am serving a master teacher. Sun Qiong looked at him in reverence. He didn't know why his old master wanted to publicize his identity as a master teacher, but he must have his reasons for having him do so. How did you spread it? I made a commotion out of me selling my shop and told everyone in the commercial city that from today onward, I will be a butler at the mansion of a master teacher. The commercial city is filled with many nosy people. I believe that it won't take long for everyone to know of it. Sun Qiong quickly replied. UN. Zhongxian responded. Indeed, that was the best way to advertise. Not only did it seem not intentional, the news would also spread fast. Of course. It would be hard to tell how the results are at this point. Old Master, is there anything else that you need me to do? Seeing that the old master was satisfied with him, excitement flashed across Sun Qiong's eyes as he asked. Nothing else. Zhongxian pondered for a moment. You should have spent quite a bit of money hiring those maids and guards. Do you still have sufficient money? He only gave 100,000 to his butler. The rent of the mansion took up 50,000 already. In total, 30 maids and 50 guards were hired, so it was likely that the remaining 50,000 wasn't enough. It is more than enough. The moment they heard that they would become the guards and maids of a master teacher, they charged forth to take up the offer. They were willing to accept low wages, some were even willing to work for free. 50,000 is more than enough, Sun Qiong said. At this point, Sun Qiong still found it hard to believe the prestige that a master teacher possessed. There were quite a few people who did not believe that he was truly serving as a butler to a master teacher. Even so, quite a few guards and girls rushed to him and expressed their interests to serve his old master. No other occupation possessed such rallying power. Putting everything else aside, just a casual pointer or two from a master teacher could be equivalent to years of their training. Just this itself was sufficient to cause countless people to go frenzied. Bring me a cup of tea. Knowing that the news is already out, what he had to do now was to wait for people to come knocking. As such, Zhong Xian went into the lounge, sat on a chair and waited patiently. Soon, a maid brought him a cup of tea. This maid is around 16 to 17-year-old and her name is Wan. She has a beautiful appearance and her eyes are exceptionally bright. Initially, upon seeing Zhong Xian, her movements were a little restrained. However, after realizing that he wasn't a hot-tempered person, she heaved a sigh of relief and ease returned to her actions. Knowing that panicking is futile, Zhong Xian waited quietly for someone to come knocking while sipping on his tea. He waited from morning till afternoon. The sun was about to set but still, no one had come over. There wasn't even a single person who had gathered outside out of curiosity. Old master, do you need me to hang a sign outside saying that a master teacher is here? Sun Qiong walked over, appearing very anxious. Zhong Xian was speechless. He would only look like a true expert if someone had learned of the fact unintentionally. If you hang a sign outside, it would seem as though I am running a business. How can I act as an unworldly expert like that? Furthermore, a master teacher is here. Why does it feel like a dog is on the premises? Please enter with caution. Looks like no one will be visiting today. Let's go out for a walk. Ignoring the words of the other party, Zhong Xian stood up. Even though Sun Qiong had put out word that there is a master teacher here, a large portion of people still chose not to believe it. After all, given the status of a master teacher, there was no way one would come to Qianxian Kingdom and, not to say, live here. Furthermore, even if one were to really live here, he should reside in an extravagant place like the palace. Renting a mansion and hiring you as the butler, you must be dreaming. Go out for a walk. Sun Qiong blinked in surprise. Then, what if someone visits in the meantime? He understood that this old master of his was trying to make a reputation for himself within the shortest period of time. After waiting for an entire day, if someone were to come knocking while he was out, wouldn't his effort of having waited the entire day go to vain? Tell the guards to stop everyone at the door. Regardless of who it is, without my permission, they aren't allowed to enter. Zhong Xian said. A master teacher must have dignity befitting of one. Regardless of who it is, even if the person were Emperor Shenzui, he wouldn't be allowed to enter without the master teacher's permission. Yes. Sun Qiong nodded his head vehemently. Let's go. Since waiting is pointless, he might as well go out to look for opportunities himself. After today comes to an end, there will only be 13 days left to the freshman tournament and 9 days for the arrival of the medicines. Time waits for no one. Walking along the street, the crowd moved to and fro by him. The sun was about to set in the west and the sky was dyed with a shade of orange. It was already autumn and the wind that blew felt chilly. Of everyone you know, who is the richest? After taking a few steps, Zhong Xian turned around to ask. Reporting to the old master, it is the boss of Tianyu Commercial City, Lord Ling Tianyu. His wealth is equivalent to that of the national treasury and he is a true billionaire. Deep admiration could be seen in Sun Qiong's eyes. The boss of Tianyu trading firm? Billionaire? Zhong Xian's eyes lit up. He'll be it. His reason for impersonating a master teacher was to earn easy bucks. Naturally, he had to pick out wealthy targets. Where does he live? Coming to a decision, Zhong Xian asked. Reporting to the old master, during this period of time, Lord Ling has been living in his trading firm. Do you want to meet him? Sun Qiong asked doubtfully. Yuan, let's go take a look. Zhong Xian nodded his head, and with an impressive wave of his arm, the two walked toward Tianyu trading firm. Chapter 129. Southern Green Jade. As usual, Tianyu trading firm was bustling and large streams of customers were flowing in and out continuously. With his hands behind his back, Zhong Xian walked in. Old Master, Lord Ling's office is just in front. After walking a distance, Sun Qiong pointed to the front. Zhong Xian lifted his head and an extravagantly decorated lounge appeared before him. There were two green jade stone lions standing before the door. They were towering and exuded majesty. The eyes of the stone lions were pitch black and filled with spirit, making the lions seem lifelike. With a single look, one couldn't help but feel intimidated. I've heard that Lord Ling had specially invited a 6mo craftsman to create this pair of stone lions. The material used is the southern green jade, the best jade in Tianxian Kingdom. Furthermore, given that it was crafted by a 6mo craftsman, just a single one of these lions is worth several million. Sun Qiong's eyes glimmered with burning passionate. Many wealthy people place valuable items before their door to showcase their wealth and prestige. At the same time, it serves as an auspicious symbol for fortune to roll in. It seemed that even this Ling Tianyu was unable to escape from this tradition. Several million? Zhong Xian was surprised. Previously, Zhong Xian thought that he could be considered rather wealthy with a single million in his possession. Upon hearing Sun Qiong's words, he realized that he was nothing more than a beggar to those who were truly wealthy. Old Master, why don't I enter first to report your arrival to Lord Ling so as to have him welcome you? Sun Qiong looked over. In his perspective, even though Lord Ling Tianyu's wealth could rival an entire national treasury, his standing was still beneath that of a master teacher. A master teacher was a powerful figure whom even Emperor Shenzui dared not to offend, not to mention that Ling Tianyu, despite his wealth, was only a merchant. There's no need for that. Zhong Xian waved his hands. I will just take a casual look. Strolling slowly, Zhong Xian approached the two towering stone lion and touched it. Cool and smooth to the touch, it was an extremely comfortable sensation. It was clear that it was top-quality jade. His fingers retracted right after contacting it. Zhong Xian continued to view about, touching the objects here and there. Only after a long period of time did he stroll back with his hands held behind his back. Looking at his old master who acted as though a countryside bumpkin who had never seen the world, Sun Qiong was filled with doubt. Let's take a seat over there. Ignoring the queer expression the other party gave him, Zhong Xian chuckled softly. There was quite a number of resting spots in Tianyu trading firm. There was one nearby, and upon taking a seat, Zhong Xian ordered for a pot of tea. Sun Qiong stood by the side, thoroughly confused with the situation. His old master said that he wanted to look for Lord Ling, yet upon arriving, he refused to enter, even stopping him from announcing his arrival. Instead, he chose to sit here to drink tea. What was he up to? Are you curious why I chose not to enter the room to meet the Lord Ling you spoke of? Seeing through his thoughts, Zhong Xian smiled faintly. Your servant dares not to speculate the thoughts of old master. Even though his thoughts were exposed, Sun Qiong did not dare to confess to it. There's no need to be nervous, just say whatever that is on your mind. Knowing that the other party was just holding himself back due to his identity as a master teacher, Zhong Xian said. I only find it weird. Old master is a master teacher, he would not reject you if you were to demand to meet him. Sun Qiong couldn't help but say. If I were to reveal my identity, he would not reject me, and he wouldn't dare to either. However, do you believe that? Even without revealing my identity, I can make him come to me on his own accord, Zhong Xian said. What a joke. Revealing my own identity to meet a merchant is unbefitting of the status of a master teacher. An astonishing impact could only be achieved if the other party willingly ran over and discovered his identity through various speculations. Without revealing your identity, Sun Qiong did not think that what Zhong Xian said was possible. That should be impossible. Lord Ling is only a merchant, but given how he is able to open such a huge trading firm, he must have a powerful backing. In fact, Nobility and influential figures might not even be able to meet him as they please. How can you possibly meet him without revealing your identity? To be able to open such a huge trading firm in the capital, where every inch of land is equivalent to gold, he must be backed by the royal family. Even though he is only a merchant, he isn't a person that we should underestimate. If he revealed his identity, the other party would definitely come knocking. But without doing so, why would he make an effort to welcome him? If Lord Ling were that carefree, he wouldn't have been able to build this business empire of his. Even though Sun Qiong was a shop owner of this commercial city, he knew that his standing wasn't sufficient to earn the Lord's attention. Hee. Chuckling softly, Zhongxian lifted his cup with elegance. Whether you believe me or not, I will make him appear obediently before me today. However, before that, you are to follow my every command, and not to disobey in the slightest. Yes. Upon witnessing the old master's overwhelming confidence, even though Sun Qiong remained full of doubts, he couldn't help but nod his head and agree to it. Good. Knock down the head of the stone lion on the left for me, Zhongxian said. What? Sun Qiong staggered, nearly fainting on the spot. He thought that the old master would think of some incredible plan. Yet this? Lord Ling valued the stone lions, which were worth millions, highly. If he were to knock the head off, his head would be knocked off his neck soon after. Old master, I don't want to die yet. Sun Qiong was on the verge of tears. I am here, you won't die that easily. Rest easy. Zhongxian waved his hands to usher him over. Sun Qiong's mouth twitched. Of course, I won't die that easily, they would get me to pay for it first. How could they let me off so easily by simply just killing me? But even if they didn't kill me, I would be crippled at the very least. Why? You dare to disobey the words of your old master? Zhongxian frowned and authority exuded from him. He was already used to being a teacher, and now coupled with his slightly withered and yellow face, it brought out an imposing disposition. Rest easy, if you knock down the lion's head, I will help you break through Fighter 3 Dan when we get back later. With me here, there won't be any problems. Not only will that Ling Tianyu not blame you, he will even thank you and send you gifts. Knowing that the other party feared that Lord Ling, it was indeed preposterous to have Sun Qiong do such a thing. Thus, Zhongxian waved his hand majestically and promised him some benefits first. All right. Upon the promise and recalling the fact that his old master is a master teacher, no matter how incredible Lord Ling was, the Lord would probably not dare to be too audacious. After hesitating for another moment longer, Sun Qiong clenched his jaws and hardened his determination. He had been stuck in Fighter 3 Dan for too long. He had tried all kinds of methods but to no avail. He thought that he would never be able to take another step forward. Now that an opportunity had presented itself before him, he would do anything to grab hold of it. That was precisely the reason why he didn't hesitate for long when the other party invited him to be his butler. With the determination of a soldier marching to his death, he turned around and walked over to the stone lion by the left. The zhenqi in Sun Qiong's body surged and a powerful aura gushed out from him. Despite looking plump and weak, he possessed incredible strength. The wind rustled alongside his fist and, with incredible might, he hammered straight across. One couldn't be considered as an expert at zhenqi realm, but he would still possess a strength of 450 kilograms upon reaching pinnacle. Even though this jade lion was made of a resilient material, when the mighty fist landed, it crumbled like fragile glass with a crisp resonance. Catcher! The head of the stone lion that was worth millions fell to the floor and shattered into fragments. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.